Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Agenda item 4 of the 12th Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence soon. May I please ask you to take your seats? Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Agenda item 4 of the 12th Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence soon. May I please ask you to take your seats? Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, a very good afternoon. Welcome back to this plenary meeting of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development. The meeting is called to order. We shall now proceed with Agenda Item 4, Review of the Regional Progress and Opportunities for Achieving the SDGs. Under this agenda item, the Forum will consider three sub-items. We will consider them one by one. After each sub-item, I will open the floor for country and stakeholder statements. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, please allow me to open the sub-agenda item A on progress towards the attainment of Sustainable Development Goals 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17 at the regional level. We will proceed with the reporting from the parallel SDG roundtables held yesterday and this morning. The 5 roundtables discussed the SDGs under review in 2025 Sustainable Development Goals 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17. The discussion set out to establish a shared understanding of the outlook and progress on the goals at the regional level and regional priority areas for accelerated actions on the goals. Each rapporteur has 3 minutes to deliver a summary of the discussions and identified priorities. Complete SDGs profiles for each goal are available on the APFSD website, and identified areas for action will be reflected in the chair's summary. We will start with a roundtable on SDG 3, good health and well-being, and I would like to invite Ms. Shireen Swami, Sustainable Development Officer, Ministry of Finance, Strategic Planning, National Development and Statistics, Fiji, to take the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Roundtable on Sustainable Development Goal 3 on Good Health and Well-being was organized by the World Health Organization with inputs from UNAIDS, UNFPA, UN Women, UN Environment Programme, UNICEF, UN Habitat, UNDP, and UNOPS under the overall coordination of UN ESCAP. The roundtable noted that despite progress across some of the SDG 3 goals, overall the region is largely off track and progress has been uneven. The roundtable's policy priority areas to accelerate progress of SDG 3 in Asia and the Pacific covered the following strategic areas. 1. Transforming primary health care, which is PHC, to achieve universal health coverage, UHC, requires a strong, adequately funded, and responsive PHC system that serves as the foundation for equitable access to essential health services. Building a resilience PHC system also necessitates supportive policies and multi-sectoral collaboration to address emerging health challenges, capacity development of frontline health workforces, expanding focus on social determinants and culturally sensitive service provision, integration of mental health including suicide prevention, health literacy advocacy should be key elements of a PHC benefit package. 2. Increasing health equity through the social determinants of health requires policies beyond health and health outcomes that are largely shaped by them. Measuring health inequalities through disaggregated data enables targeted interventions and resource allocation to undeserved populations. Partnerships between public and private sectors, civil society, and local communities are essential to reducing health disparities. 3. Embracing innovation and technology for health. Digital health offers opportunities to improve healthcare access, efficiency, and strengthens health system resilience. However, digital transformation in health requires strong governance, should be people-centric and needs-driven, and should involve a wide range of actors. 4. Investing in health data and integrated information systems drive efficiency, equity, and responsiveness in healthcare, significantly advancing global health goals. Information systems and data should be standards-based, interoperable, and should enable seamless data exchange, improving healthcare coordination and decision-making. Promoting a safe and ethical use of data culture is pivotal. 5. Promoting and strengthening regional action on health and environment is vital to reducing deaths and illness related to hazardous chemicals and pollution. Synergies between health and environment sectors is pivotal. Raising awareness of environmental health in regional forums and addressing environmental health concerns through other multilateral agreements and conventions is of importance. Let us strengthen partnerships towards a future where health and well-being are accessible for all. I thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Her Excellency Sukphaphan Phanit, Permanent Secretary of the Lao Women's Union and Chair of the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, as the rapporteur of the Roundtable on SDG 5, Gender Equality, to take the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Roundtable on SDG 5 on gender equality was organized by UN Women, UNFPA, and UNHCR with the input from UNICEF, UNDP, UNAIDS, UNEP, and UNESCO under the overall coordination of UNESCAP. Gender equality is a human right and a precondition for realizing all SDGs. The backlash against the human rights of women and girls in all their diversity imperil the 2030 agenda and call for actions by all stakeholders. To advance progress on SDG 5 in Asia and the Pacific, the Roundtable's proposed priority actions cover different strategic areas, including investment in bridging gender and intersectional data gaps, reshaping gender norms, strengthening multi-sectoral partnerships, and ensuring inclusive, safe, and meaningful civil society participation, including at intergovernmental fora. Institutionalizing gender parity through reforms, implementing social measures and accountability, providing mentor for young women and fostering leadership networks, creating inclusive institutions, adopting intersectional approaches, and supporting participation of women, civil society, and women human rights defenders. Ensuring that laws and policies addressing gender-based violence and harmful practices are survival centers, evidence-based, and adequately funded. Amplifying the voices of diverse women and girls, investing in prevention by addressing power dynamics and harmful gender norms, and supporting women's rights organizations. Enabling women's employment and entrepreneurship, decision work, and freedom of association across sectors, improving gender-responsive, age-sensitive social protection, investing in the care economy, closing gender gaps in skill, including STEM, and improving access to resources, empowering adolescent girls to advocate for their sexual and reproductive health and rights, strengthening legal frameworks, provide adolescents responsive services, expanding comprehensive sexuality education, and partnering with and for girls to ensure inclusive, evidence-based HR policies and programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have the honor to invite Ms. Aretha Janine Garcia, Supervising Economic Development Specialist, Social Development Staff, National Economic and Development Authority, Republic of the Philippines, to present a report on the Roundtable on SDG 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth.
Thank you, Chairperson. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Roundtable on Sustainable Development 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth was organized by the International Labor Organization with inputs from UNICEF, UNEP, UNFPA, UN Women, and United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner under the overall coordination of ESCAP. Participants in the roundtable underscored several priorities for action to advance the progress of SDG 8 in Asia and the Pacific, framed around four broad priorities. First, addressing intergenerational challenges, youth and gender disparities within employment and skills training. Second, accelerating just transition and green jobs. Third, improving labor rights and safe working environments. And fourth, improving and leveraging data to inform labor policies. Across these different policy domains, a number of cross-cutting issues were identified as priority areas for the promotion of decent work and economic growth. These include ensuring participatory decision-making process that encourages dialogue among governments, workers, employers, and civil society. Second, developing responsive social protection measures accompanied by consolidated efforts to promote the acquisition of in-demand education, and skills as means to achieve full and productive employment. Third, stimulating investment enterprise creation in emerging low-carbon economic activities, especially among micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And lastly, closing data gaps by implementing data practices that capture the voices of vulnerable and hard-to-reach groups and communities to enhance evidence generation and improve policy design. As countries strive to make progress in SDG 8, policies and programs should take into consideration the unique, often multiple challenges faced by vulnerable groups, including but not limited to informal workers, indigenous peoples, women, youth, persons with disabilities, home-based workers, and migrant workers in accessing decent work to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Leonardo Sambodo, Deputy for Food, Natural Resource and Environment, Ministry of National Planning, Indonesia, Rapporteur of the Roundtable on SDG 14 on Life Below Water, to take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, under the overall coordination of ESCAP and UNEP, the Roundtable on Sustainable Development Goals 14 on Life Below Water was organized in collaboration with UNESCO, FAO, UNDP, UN Habitat, OHCHR, and UN Women. Climate change, overfishing, habitat change, invasive species introduction, and pollution arising from poor management practices and market failures are threatening ocean health with serious, harmful, and irreversible consequences. Moving forward, it is vital to accelerate efforts to mitigate marine pollution and enhance marine conservation while strengthening the long-term sustainability of marine resources. Progress is also hindered by a lack of financing given that SDGs 14 is the least funded of all the SDGs. To accelerate progress on SDGs 14, a diverse range of stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, academia, international organizations, civil society representatives, youth, and the UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of climate change, were presented with the opportunity to review the contents of the SDGs 14 profile developed in the preparation for the forum. During the discussion, participants had the opportunity to engage in an in-depth review of SDGs 14 with a special focus on leaving no one behind, scaling up ocean action, and financing and data. The goal profile prompted the roundtable discussion and facilitated the identification of priority areas for action to accelerate the progress of SDGs 14 in Asia and the Pacific, including first, increase investment and financing for SDGs 14. Second, strengthen data and monitoring systems, including through ocean accounting. 3, respect the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment and operationalize a gender-responsive, human right-based approach to marine and coastal biodiversity. 4th, strengthen ocean governance. And 5th, foster youth and gender-responsive interfaces of ocean science, policy, and society, and catalyze ocean knowledge and solution. And lastly, to scale up ocean-based climate action. Participants shared best practices and initiatives, including ocean accounting, building sustainable partnerships with the private sector, closing data and development gaps, and the voluntary initiative for regional cooperation on ocean-based climate action. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Finally, I would like to invite Ms. Araxia Pabikian, Third Secretary of the UN and Sustainable Development Division, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Armenia, as Rapporteur of the Roundtable on SDG 17 on Partnerships for the Goals, to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for giving me the floor. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Roundtable on Sustainable Development Goal 17 was convened by the UN Development Coordination Office with contributions from ESCAP, UNOPS, UN Women, UNEP, OHSR, UNAIDS, UNICEF, UNESCO, and ITU. The discussions focused on advancing SDG 17 in Asia and the Pacific, emphasizing key strategic areas related to taxation, climate action, and private finance. The key policy priorities identified include strengthening the UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation to establish a fairer global tax system to support coordinated tax actions. Encouraging member states to review the global minimum corporate tax, reassess incentives for extractive industries, and explore taxation models for digital economies. Promoting country-by-country tax reporting for multinational corporations and enhance tax transparency and accountability. Support member states to evaluate and implement innovative tax practices and consider progressive taxation and alternative revenue sources to support SDG implementation. Encouraging member states to engage with the Climate Technology Center and Network to advance low carbon and climate resilient initiatives, particularly in the areas such as water, energy, food nexus, sustainable buildings, and mobility. Promoting a balanced approach to climate policies in the Asia-Pacific region, integrating both market-based and non-market mechanisms with culturally adaptive strategies, a right-based approach, and community-driven solutions. Advocating for the inclusion of youth, women, and marginalized groups in decision-making processes to foster inclusive and equitable governance. Supporting trade agreements that enhance domestic mineral processing and technological development, driving economic sustainability, industrial growth, and equitable resource management. Encouraging stronger partnerships between civil society, governments, and the private sector to mobilize financing for sustainable development initiatives. Urging regulators to align sustainable finance regulations with regional and global standards to mitigate the risks of greenwashing and ensure responsible financial practices. Prioritizing the enhancement of data collection and disclosure standards before mandating climate-related financial risk disclosures. Promoting sustainable debt through responsible borrowing, strong governance, and transparency. Using the multidimensional vulnerability index for disaster-prone countries and address foreign currency risks to prevent default and harmful austerity measures. Supporting countries in special situations, especially LDCs, LLDCs, SEEDs, as well as middle-income countries to address their structural constraints and limitations to access the concessional financing. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. To all distinguished rapporteurs, I would like to thank you for your brief and concise reports and for conveying those key messages from the SDG roundtables. You may please take your country seats. Okay. So we're starting with that. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I am pleased to invite the distinguished delegates to intervene on agenda item 4A, progress towards the attainment of Sustainable Development Goals 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17 at the regional level. I will open the floor to statements from delegates in the speaking order as received from the Secretariat. I kindly remind delegates to limit their statements to no longer than 3 minutes length to allow all delegates the opportunity to speak. I now recognize the distinguished delegate from Bangladesh to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Malaysia.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, and my friends. It is a great honor for Bangladesh to address this prestigious forum, and we echo the recommendations suggested in the previous roundtable by our rapporteurs. Bangladesh has made significant strides in the several key SDGs mentioned today. In SDG 3, good health and well-being, we have expanded healthcare access, improved material and child health, and increased immunization coverage. For SDG 5 in gender equality, advancing the women's empowerment remains a national priority, with policies and supporting workplace inclusion, economic participation, and measures to combat gender-based violence. Women's participation in the labor force continues to rise steadily, contributing to our economic resilience. On SDG 8, Bangladesh's economic transformation is evident in its gradually expanding industrial base, thriving SMEs in a digital ecosystem. The government remains committed to job creation, fostering entrepreneurship, and ensuring decent work for all, especially for the youth. In SDG 14, Life Below Water, as a coastal nation, Bangladesh has prioritized marine biodiversity conservation, sustainable fisheries, and a pollution reduction to safeguard ocean economic systems for the future generations. On SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, stronger regional and international partnerships have enhanced Bangladesh's ability to mobilize resources, facilitate technology transfer, and implement sustainable policies. Our emphasis on South-South cooperation remains, which has fostered knowledge sharing and best practices across the region. Despite notable progresses in these 5 key SDGs, the interim government of Bangladesh is actively expanding avenues to identify the gaps and amplify the voices of the youth and marginalized communities, to ensure that the 2030 Agenda's commitment to leaving no one behind is not just an aspiration but a lived reality. Regional partnerships remain instrumental in addressing cross-border challenges. By strengthening collaborations with SAARC, BIMSTEC, and ASEAN, Bangladesh is advancing regional trade, climate resilience, and technological exchange. Knowledge sharing is equally vital. We firmly believe that regional cooperation in education, research, and digital innovation can act as a catalyst for sustainable development. Leveraging digital platforms and collaborative research networks, we can scale solutions that benefit the entire region. To overcome these challenges, Bangladesh calls upon the international community and the regional friends and stakeholders to take decisive action in the following areas: enhance investment in climate adaptation and resilience, to prioritize the climate financing, particularly for the vulnerable nations like Bangladesh, to support adaptation strategies and sustainable infrastructure. Bridging the digital divide, we need regional cooperation, which is crucial to expand digital access, particularly in our rural and underserved communities, to ensure their equitable participation in the global economy. We need to also strengthen youth employment and skills development. We need increased investment in vocational training, digital education, and entrepreneurship support, which will be key to unlocking the potential of our upcoming youth. Regional trade and financial cooperation remains always important. Expanding trade participation and financial collaboration within the region, we can support stabilizing economies and promoting our inclusive growth. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Malaysia to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Thailand.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Malaysia is committed to advancing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development through inclusive, data-driven policies that promote health equity, economic resilience, environmental sustainability, and regional cooperation for a more prosperous and sustainable future. Malaysia prioritizes inclusive healthcare under SDG 3, focusing on maternal and child health, reproductive rights, and disease prevention. We combat non-communicable diseases through data-driven strategies and community-based interventions. Strengthened primary healthcare ensures better access, particularly in rural areas, with efforts to address tuberculosis and HIV through screening, treatment expansion, and harm reduction. Under SDG 5, Malaysia is dedicated to gender equality and social protections. The establishment of the Sexual Harassment Tribunal in 2024 and the enforcement of the Sexual Harassment Act 2022 strengthened protections for women and girls. SDG 8 features the introduction of progressive wage policy to address labor market challenges by ensuring wages grow with productivity. Employers are assessed and rated, promoting a competitive wage culture that attracts top talent. Malaysia is committed in SDG 14 with 5.4% of marine areas protected and a target to protect 10% by 2030. We take firm action against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, including acceptance of the WTO Fisheries Subsidies Agreement in 2024. We call for greater regional collaboration in this platform to combat unsustainable fishing and protect marine biodiversity. Malaysia actively participates in the ASEAN Coordinating Task Force on the Blue Economy and believes the ASEAN Blue Economy Implementation Plan will bring mutual benefits in the region. Malaysia is developing its Blue Economy Blueprint, focusing on sustainable fisheries, green ports, maritime tourism, ocean renewable energy, and marine biotechnology to ensure sustainable growth. Mr. Chairman, Malaysia reaffirms its SDG commitment by integrating ESG principles into national policies. Through multi-stakeholder discussions and the upcoming National ESG Strategic Plan, we aim to ensure long-term resilience in business entities and across sectors. In conclusion, as ASEAN Chair in 2025, Malaysia will prioritize sustainable energy, biodiversity conservation, and the development of financial and environmental taxonomies. Achieving sustainable development requires stronger cooperation and strategic alliances among member states while amplifying the voices of developing countries globally to advance our collective goals. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Thailand to be followed by the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, it's my pleasure to update the progress of Thailand SDG implementation in the selected goals in this recent year. Thailand has conducted several programs to accelerate SDG in the second half of the accomplishment. For SDG 3, the National Health Security System has expanded its coverage on additional vaccination, mental health counseling, disease screening, and health consultation hotlines. The scheme also unlocked the accessibility from only a specific healthcare location to be nationwide. Moreover, Thailand continuously resolved the medical workforce shortage through the 10-year strategic plan by increasing the medical accessibility with adequate healthcare professionals and prepared the country to become a wellness and medical destination. In order to reach gender equality, the main objective of SDG 5, Thailand released the remarkable legislation on the marriage equality law at the beginning of this year, becoming the first country in the Southeast Asia to do so. The law removed gender discrimination in legal marriage while ensuring equal benefits for all couples. For SDG 8, in 2024, Thailand's economy grew by 2.5%, accelerating from 2% in the previous year. Thailand continues to advance sustainable economic growth through strategic investment, trade expansion, and workforce development. The government has implemented several financial and monetary initiatives to stimulate the economy. Thailand's unemployment rate remains low. As an effort to improve labor market conditions, the minimum wage has been increased with workforce upskilling programs. Reducing marine debris is one of Thailand's priorities in achieving SDG 14. Since plastic became a major environmental challenge, the government has released several measures to tackle this issue. The measures cover the single-use plastic ban policy and promoting resource circularity that are mainly aimed to minimizing plastic waste generation and preventing its leakage into an environment. Although the share of fishery in GDP has slightly grown in past years, the environmental conservation is necessary to ensure the sustainable fisheries. Marine protected areas have been expanded to strengthen the conservation measures and reinforce in sustainable fishing practices. For SDG 17, financial mechanism has played a crucial role in driving SDGs. In the past years, a new generation of financial instruments, such as sustainability-linked bonds and social bonds, has been utilized to raise funds for sustainability. Tax measures have been applied to encourage the sustainable investment together with effective public debt management to stabilize fiscal sustainability. Finally, Thailand introduced the SDG dashboard earlier this month to showcase the evidence-based progress in SDG implementation and engage stakeholders into monitoring and evaluation procedures. Thank you very much.
I thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation to be followed by distinguished delegate from Indonesia.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые делегаты, повестка 2030 остается наиболее универсальной рамкой по устойчивому развитию. Рады, что ее реализация в фокусе стран региона. Позвольте отметить значительный прогресс государств Азиатско-Тихоокеанского региона в обеспечении экономического роста, а также поделиться российскими подходами к реализации ЦУР-8 на национальном уровне. В последние годы российская экономика демонстрирует способность успешно развиваться, несмотря на внешние вызовы. С 2020 год по 2024 год экономика выросла почти на 13%. Рост ВВП России за 2024 год составил 4,1%, что на 0,5% больше, чем в 2023 году. Согласно расчетам Всемирного банка, Россия занимает 4-е место по объему ВВП, рассчитанному по паритету покупательной способности. Согласно одной из важнейших задач правительства Российской Федерации в целях поступательного, устойчивого экономического роста остается содействие привлечению инвестиций в экономику. Реализуется план действий по ускорению темпов роста инвестиций в основной капитал и повышению до 25% их доли в ВВП, а также по созданию условий для их привлечения. Прирост инвестиций в российскую экономику в 2024 году составил 8,6%. Отмечаем усиление частной предпринимательской инициативы в сфере инвестиций. У 63,7% российских компаний есть инвестпроекты. Это рекордный уровень за последние 10 лет. В России сохраняется рекордно низкая безработица. В прошедшем году показатель находился на исторически минимальном уровне 2,3%. 2022 года продолжают реализовываться мероприятия по содействию занятости населения и снижению напряженности на рынке труда. В рамках указанного проекта модернизированные центры занятости предоставляют широкий комплекс услуг от формирования кадрового резерва компаний до помощи в построении карьерных траекторий соискателей. Одним из ключевых приоритетов правительства Российской Федерации является формирование благоприятной предпринимательской среды. Развитию сектора МСП способствует комплекс мероприятий и мер поддержки, реализуемых в рамках одноименного национального проекта. Больше возможностей для самореализации появилось с развитием креативных индустрий. Уходящий 2024 год можно охарактеризовать прорывным для их развития. Главный ориентир для отрасли к 2030 году вклад креативных индустрий в экономику страны должен увеличиться до 6%. Сейчас этот показатель оценивается на уровне 3,5%. Важно отметить, что новый национальный проект, запущенный с января 2025 года «Эффективная конкурентная экономика», объединяет основные задачи экономической политики и является ключевым инструментом по обеспечению устойчивого экономического развития, основанного на конкуренции, предпринимательстве и частной инициативе. В завершение отмечаем, что определяющие прогресс по ЦУР-8 в регионе вопросы занятости, безработицы и механизмы социальной защиты по-прежнему являются особенно чувствительными и требуют пристального внимания со стороны государств-членов. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Indonesia to be followed by a distinguished delegate from the collective statement of APRSEM, Asia Pacific Regional CSO's engagement mechanism.
Chair, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Indonesia reaffirms its strong commitment to SDGs and regional cooperation for sustainable prosperity in Asia and Pacific. Reviewing regional progress on SDGs 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17, Indonesia proudly shares its achievements and offers collaboration for sustainable development. On SDGs 3, Indonesia has improved public health, reduced maternal and child mortality, and expand universal health coverage through the National Health Insurance Scheme, now covering over 90% of the population. Within this policy, we are also strengthening resilience to future health crises through pandemic preparedness, digital health services, and community-based care. And we are ready to share best practices and technology to strengthen regional health system. On SDGs 5, gender equality. Gender equality is central to Indonesia's sustainable development agenda. This is shown by our commitment to boost women leadership, protect against gender-based violence, and promote financial inclusion for women entrepreneurs. Indonesia is committed to sharing its policy, experience, and capacity building efforts to promote gender equality in the Asia and Pacific. On SDGs 8, Indonesia's economy grew steadily, achieving 5.1% growth in 2023. The achievement was also supported by better policies prioritizing job creation through various infrastructure and digital transformation programs and projects, resulting in the reduction of unemployment to 5.3%. Efforts to promote decent work include expanding social protection, strengthening labor rights enforcement, especially in occupational safety, health, and health policy, and ensuring equal rights for male and female workers. On SDGs 14, as the world's largest archipelago, Indonesia prioritized marine conservation, sustainable fisheries, and combating marine debris. The implementation is guided by the Blue Economy Roadmap and supported by our commitment to improve ocean governance and our leadership in the Coral Triangle Initiative. We invite regional partners to expand collaboration in sustainable ocean management and climate adaptation. On SDGs 17, Indonesia believes strong partnerships are key to achieving the SDGs. Therefore, we support regional cooperation to ASEAN, APEC, and ESCAP in promoting knowledge sharing, capacity building, technology transfer, and the development of innovative financing through the involvement of non-governmental stakeholders. Indonesia is also active in South-South and triangular cooperation SDGs progress in the Asia and Pacific. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from APRSEM, Asia Pacific Regional CSO Engagement Mechanism, to be followed by the distinguished delegate of Nepal.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the APRSEM to deliver our collective statement, particularly highlighting our recommendation on SDG 14. We raise an alarming concern on the state of the progress of the goals. Half of the target lag behind, while the other half is hard to track due to the insufficient data. Notwithstanding the post-COVID and other emergent crises, the lack of data to third into the timeline is a stark reflection on the level of governmental commitment, marked by lack of the capacity and political will to monitor the SDG. Insufficient data to measure the progress in critical areas of the SDG ignores the structural and systematic barriers. Despite the recent multilateral consensus on the need for the global governance reforms in the past pact for the future, we the people reiterate that the absence of emphasis and addressing the systematic barriers undermines the fundamental principle of the right to development, investing the recognize the human rights to economic, social, cultural, and political development, without which sustainable development, peace, and justice cannot be achieved. We also reiterate that the need to recognize the value and contribution of the civil society and the people's organization in the process, including evaluating the voice of the marginalized. In this regard, we put forward particular recommendation on SDG 14 with the demand to recognize the Fisher's people as the custodian of our planet, water, and right holders, mobilizing for food sovereignty, biodiversity protection, and life ways that are in harmony with nature. Specifically, implement the FAO's small-scale fishery guidelines, secure land and water rights for the traditional fishing communities with the community-led marine protected area, community-led protected areas as a policy, include provision of sustainable fishery subsidy in climate adoption policy, promote income generation through the sustainable fishery and aquaculture to strengthen the economic resilience, conduct the national disaster risk reduction program and adopt the robust assurance scheme to mitigate the long-term climate-related impact, develop adoption strategy which are culturally appropriate, community-led, sustainable and climate resilient, and to use the destructive fishing gear and disruptive industrial fishing practices, implement stringent regulation to protect the marine ecosystem, enforce marine pollution laws, and lastly, the government of the world must listen to their people, grassroots and marginalized, in the line with the whole of the society approach to the approach. The people are key to genuine sustainable development, and the solution can only be made with democratic deliberation. Such the genuine transformation can only be achieved through the recognizing systematic barriers and how to determine the people's right to development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Nepal to be followed by the distinguished delegate from China.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Nepal has made the significant strides towards achieving the SDGs, particularly in access to education, healthcare, improved gender equality. However, progress has been slow in the areas like decent work and economic growth, affordable clean energy, climate action, and partnership on implementation of SDGs. Nepal's national experience in implementation of SDGs has been a mixed kind. We have seen an average progress of 58% towards 2022 targets and 41% toward 2030 targets. Based on the current pace of progress, the country is projected to attain the 60.5% of its long-term goal by 2030. Mr. Chair, Nepal has made the notable progress in good health and well-being, particularly in improving the universal health coverage, reducing maternal mortality, and increasing the access to the antiretroviral therapy, including HIV control. However, challenges remains in reducing child mortality, addressing substance abuse and controlling tobacco use, and combating communicable diseases like malaria. Non-communicable disease and mental health are emerging healthcare issues require significant intervention. Mr. Chair, Nepal progress in gender equality includes reduction in violence against women and child marriage. Women's representation in elected bodies stands about 34% in the national parliament and the provincial parliament, and 41% in local government, showcasing the significant political participation in the country. Nepal faces challenges in achieving the decent work and economic growth with informal employment remaining the slow progress toward formalizing job. In SDG 17, Nepal has improved the digital connectivity with internet users reaches to 70.2% by 2022. However, challenges persist in mobilizing the domestic revenue and external resources. The anticipated countries graduation from LDC category by 2026 may further impact in trade, diversification, and ODA flows, among others. Finally, Nepal stands ready to forge the partnership and call upon the heightened regional and global cooperation on achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you all.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from China to be followed by the distinguished delegate from the Islamic Republic of Iran.
尊敬的主席先生，中方高度重视落实2030年可持续发展议程，坚持以人民为中心，推进社会经济高质量发展，为区域落实可持续发展目标作出积极贡献。中国全面推进健康中国建设，深化医药卫生体制机制改革，建立起全世界最大规模的医疗卫生服务体系。2023年，中国人均预期寿命78.6岁，位于中高收入国家前列。全国孕产妇和婴幼儿死亡率继续稳步下降，提前实现有关妇幼健康目标。中国坚持男女平等基本国策，积极推进妇女赋权，妇女受教育权利显著提升。截至2022年末，女性在高等教育在校生中 占50%，在研究生中占51.2%。妇女公共事务参与度全面提高。2024年，女性在全国人大代表和政协委员中分别占26.54%和22.4%，创历史新高。在企业职工董事中占37.1%，在科技工作者中占45.8%，且增速超过男性。中国坚持稳中求进工作总基调，扎实推进高质量发展。2024年 GDP 为18.94亿美元，同比增长5%。中国深入实施就业优先战略，促进高质量充分就业。2024年，全国新增就业1256万人，劳动报酬与劳动生产率同步增长，社会保障覆盖面不断扩大，劳动权益保障法治化、制度化、规范化水平逐步提高，劳动者工作更加体面、更加尊严。中国坚持开放和保护并重，污染防治和生态修复并举，陆海统筹推进海洋生态环境保护。2016年至2023年，累计修复海岸线1500公里，滨海湿地3万公顷。2023年，中国近海海域优良水质面积占85%，比2012年高出21.3个百分点。海洋电力、海洋药物和生物制品等海洋新兴产业不断壮大，海洋资源可持续利用水平有效提升。中国积极推动构建伙伴关系，提出“一带一路”倡议和全球发展倡议，为加速落实2030年议程搭建平台注入动力。目前，“一带一路”伙伴国已超过150个，82个国家加入全球发展倡议知友小组，一大批重大标志性工程和小而美的民生项目成功落地，有力促进了当地社会经济发展和民生福祉改善。主席先生，中国正进一步全面深化改革，推进中国式现代化，开启中国携手世界共同发展的新征程。中国推进落实2030年议程将迈出新步伐，将为世界各国实现可持续发展提供新机遇，为落实可持续发展目标做出更大贡献。谢谢。
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I will now invite the distinguished delegate from the local authorities, Major Group Asia Pacific Local Government Coordinating Body, to be followed by a distinguished delegate, Yuan AIDS.
Thank you for the opportunity to take the floor. I am Vaikuntha Neupane, the Mayor of Bas Municipality, Nepal, and I speak on behalf of the organized constituency of local authorities represented by the Asia Pacific Local Government Coordinating Body facilitated by the United Cities and Local Governments Asia Pacific. We appreciate how the legislation of the SDGs and the key role of local and regional governments to achieve the SDGs have been recognized in the forum. We have also heard the increasing support to and growing number of voluntary local reviews in the region. Local and regional governments propose the following priority action to accelerate progress on the SDGs. Goal 3, we support the priority and action in the Goal 3 profile to strengthen primary health care to achieve universal health coverage. In addition, there is a need to improve healthcare infrastructure to facilitate accessibility and deliver of the health service in urban and rural areas. Preventive healthcare measures such as vaccination, early screening, public health campaigns, and oral health care need to be enhanced. Goal 5. We underscore the need to improve the collection of gender data and to address underrepresentation of women and leadership and political roles is indicated the goal profile. Goal 8. Related to Goal 5, we emphasize the need for formal recognition and compensation of care work often performed by women. Furthermore, we need to facilitate the transition of informal sector to formal economy by supporting startups and providing skills development. Goal 14. Adopt nature-based solutions to manage water-related risk and reduce microplastic pollution through stickers, waste management policies, public awareness campaigns, and technological innovations to monitor and mitigate microplastics in our waterways and oceans. Goal 17. Promote the use of digital tools and data sharing platforms across all levels of governments and stakeholders to improve transparency, enhance decision making, and track progress towards SDGs implementation. We also need training to support for local and regional governments and stakeholders to ensure long-term impact of partnership. Lastly, it is vital to enrich the capacity of local and regional government to access finance and increase investment at the local levels. Let me conclude with a call to build the future together, a future that is sustainable, inclusive, and equity based for all. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I will now invite the distinguished delegate from E1H.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to note Asia Pacific's progress and challenges regarding SDG 3, Target 3.3 to end AIDS by 2030. Distinguished delegates, at this current pace, the region will miss the mark. We can accelerate to the promise of an AIDS-free generation, but to do so, we must act and invest differently now. In 2023, there were 6.7 million people living with HIV in Asia Pacific. Of course, of these, 67% were on treatment and 65% had achieved a suppressed viral load that prevents further transmission sexually. This means 1/3 of people living with HIV are not getting the care they need to not only stay healthy, but to prevent passing HIV to others. We had 300,000 new infections in the region in 2023, 1 every 2 minutes, and with only a 13% decline over the last decade. 4 of every 5 new infections occur among key populations and their partners. The key populations include men who have sex with men, people in prisons and other closed settings, people who inject drugs, sex workers, and transgender people. Yet most countries in the region are drastically underspending on services for these communities with the highest level of infections. The progress is uneven. Bhutan, Cambodia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and Thailand are all treating more than 90% of diagnosed people. However, there are growing epidemics in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Fiji, Laos, PDR, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines. In some countries, new infections have doubled, tripled, or even increased 6-fold since 2010. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, inequalities fuel this epidemic, undermining health, well-being, and human rights. Legal barriers create significant fears for some, compelling them to remain hidden and to avoid seeking care and support. While there have been gains, these are fragile. Funding gaps, stigma, and inadequate access to healthcare services have slowed progress. It is crucial for stakeholders, and especially our member states, to recognize the precarious nature of these gains and the need for intensified, focused action. We need innovative approaches in prevention, treatment, and service access. We must eliminate the legal and regulatory barriers to equitable program coverage. Sustainable financing is essential, including sufficient domestic investment, and we must strengthen partnerships and multi-sectoral collaboration, including investing in community-led responses. Mr. Chair, we need more breaking down of the SDG silos and focus more on intersectional realities. Now more than ever, we must address the social determinants that shape everything from access to education, to health, to justice. Our bottom line is that we must respond to the realities, needs, and vulnerabilities of the people who are most vulnerable in our societies. If we lose focus on them, we lose our way entirely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. Distinguished delegates and participants, in the interest of time, we will now move on to sub-agenda item 4B. For delegates who still wish to speak under 4A, we will accommodate the request in the time allotted for statement in sub-agenda item 4B, if the time allows. For the reporting and posting of statements online, the Secretariat will note the corresponding sub-agenda item you have indicated on the statement request. Let us continue with sub-item B on implementation of the 2030 agenda at the sub-regional level. The document pertinent to this item is implementation of the 2030 agenda for sustainable development at the sub-regional level. The discussions under this sub-item will take stock of the key messages from the 5 sub-regional multi-stakeholder SDG forums that examined the challenges and opportunities facing the region in achieving the sustainable development goals and shared experiences and sub-regional perspectives. We aim to identify ways to accelerate action to advance the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. For our deliberations under this sub-item, we are honored to have Mr. Ganbald Basanjav, head of the Subregional Office for East and Northeast Asia of ESCAP, who will moderate the discussion. May I invite Mr. Basanjav to come to the rostrum and moderate the discussions.
Good afternoon, distinguished panelists and participants. It is my privilege to welcome you to this crucial panel discussion, which centers on key efforts and strategies to ensure that no one is left behind in the journey toward sustainable development, particularly in the diverse subregions such as Asia and the Pacific. We are honored to have representatives from the 5 ESCAP subregions who participated in the 2024 Subregional SDG forums. They will provide valuable insights into the main features and outcomes of those events, highlighting where their respective subregions currently stand in terms of the SDG implementation. This will give us a clear understanding of common challenges, innovative solutions, and opportunities for regional cooperation. Our discussion today will also align with the thematic focus of the high-level political forum and on SDG Goals 3, SDG Goals 5, 8, 14, and 17. These goals, essential to human development, environmental stewardship, and economic progress, require urgent attention and action if we are to achieve the 2030 agenda. As we hear from our esteemed panelists, I encourage everyone to reflect on the importance of science and evidence-based approaches, inclusive governance, and meaningful cooperation across subregions to overcome persistent barriers. Together, let us explore innovative pathways for achieving a more sustainable and equitable future for all. Thank you for joining us, and let us now proceed by welcoming our first speaker, His Excellency Mr. Amitawa Yuwoli, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Fiji to the Republic of Indonesia, High Commissioner to Singapore, High Commissioner to Malaysia, Permanent Representative to ESCAP in Bangkok, reporting on the Subregional Forum in the Pacific. His Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator. In view of the time constraints we're having at hand, let me just give you a broad background of the structure of the presentations, which can be accessed via the Secretariat or online. First, I will just briefly look at background and mandates, SDG specific challenges, opportunities and way forward, conclusions and way forward. On the first part, background and mandates, the 8th Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development was held in Suva, Fiji on 8th and 9th of October 2024 and reaffirmed the Pacific's commitment to the 2030 agenda. Co-hosted by ESCAP Pacific Office and the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, along with the support of the Council of Regional Organizations of the Pacific agencies and the UN system. The forum was attended by multi-stakeholders, including member states, IGOs, UN agencies, private sector, and civil society. However, despite this commitment, advancement towards the 2030 agenda in the Pacific remains inconsistent and insufficient. The Pacific is not on track to achieving the SDGs, reinforcing the urgent need, thus reinforcing the message and the urgent need for coordinated, transformative actions, and we are calling for this, this message. In terms of strategy going forward, or in terms of mandate, the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent provides the overarching framework to advance sustainable development, ensuring that Pacific priorities drive out our regional and global engagement. These are aligned with the SDGs. While the most progress has been recorded in goals 2 and 10, which is zero hunger and reduce inequality, goals 11, 12, and 13 regressed. Given the existential threats of climate change to the Pacific Island nations or Pacific seas, it is deeply concerning that goal 13, climate action, has regressed. The Pacific contributes less than 1% of global emissions, yet bears the full brunt of climate-related disasters, sea level rise, and biodiversity losses. On SDG specific challenges, with regard to specific goals under review, SDG 3, good health and well-being, the Pacific is facing a significant health and economic burden because of NDCs, which are responsible for premature mortality, ill health, and disability. This situation is deteriorating despite health sector-focused initiatives, with projections suggesting an increase in the economic cost and NC burdens now and into the future. On SDG 5, gender equality, despite progress, the Pacific remains significantly off track to achieve SDG 5 on gender equality and must undertake considerable efforts to achieve a sustainable substantive gender equality. On SDG 8, on decent work and economic growth relating to youth unemployment, persons with disabilities, and outward migration, these are areas that we are really facing, and Pacific priorities should include improving investments and private sector development, promoting decent work and addressing inequality, including improving public sector management and expanding social security. Life below water, SDG 14, the challenge we face, the conservation and sustainable management of oceans are critical for the Pacific. So the various challenges we face: one, sea level rise poses a significant threat to the economies, cultures, and population of Pacific countries due to our extensive marine and coastal zones. Two, high temperatures, ocean acidification, and pollution poses a threat to marine ecosystem. These ecosystems are essential for economic activities such as fisheries and tourism, as well as for the protection of coastlines from storms and their functions as carbon sinks. SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. In the Pacific, the engagement of civil society is critical, and the private sector has demonstrated its potential in promoting sustainable development, with visionary business leaders regarding the SDGs as a framework for addressing an unpredictable future. There's a need for a paradigm shift in how PPPs are formed, with more inclusive partnerships, including public-private community partnerships that take a bottoms-up approach and leverage solutions that the private sector and local communities can bring to the table. Part C of my presentation is opportunities and the way forward. Despite this challenge in achieving the SDGs, there are also opportunities. I mentioned earlier the 2050 strategy, which is people-centered development that has enabled our leaders, agreed to by our leaders, to drive on these key development issues such as health, education, and gender equality. Two, the absence of reliable data hampers efforts to track progress and develop tailored solutions for the Pacific. In response, the Pacific region has called for strengthening national and regional systems like the Pacific Data Hubs and SEEDS data initiatives, aligning SDG monitoring with Pacific-led frameworks. This work is further supported by the indicator guidelines for policy monitoring in the Pacific, as being developed by ESCAP and SPC to facilitate more effective monitoring and reporting of Pacific countries' priorities. Third, SDG 3, good health and well-being. Building resilient and responsive health systems requires establishing and strengthening national health workforce strategies with a particular focus on quality training, retention, and ethical mobility practice. And the Pacific is committed to enhancing regional cooperation in this regard. SDG 5 on gender equality, there are efforts in the Pacific to consolidate undertakings and promote greater coherence and synergies of the various platforms addressing gender equality. What is key for us is the enabling environment and the financing that will strengthen our resolve to address this particular SDG. So the Pacific Roadmap for Economic Development identifies such actions that will grow diversity and in our economic base, modernize our economies, and build economic and financial resilience to harness the full potential of our land and ocean resources. SDG 14, the Pacific region remains at the forefront of a global advocacy for ocean governance, environmental protection, and sustainable resource management. The upcoming third UN conference in Seville, Spain is an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to ocean conservation, recognizing that our Blue Pacific is central to our identity, economies, and resilience. It is an opportunity to strengthen regional and global cooperation on ocean governance to protect our biodiversity, environment, and resources from exploitation, and to enhance collective action against degradation, nuclear contamination, waste, pollution, and health threats. SDG 17, collaboration is the only means by which national regional and internationally agreed upon development objectives can be achieved. Collaborations will lead to strengthen national systems, transformative reforms, strengthen digitization, shared experiences and lessons learned, and technical expertise, and the sustainable management of natural resources. In conclusion, Chair, the opportunities and the way forward, despite the challenges, the Pacific remains a region of resilience, leadership, and innovation. As we look to 2030, 2050, and beyond, we call for renewed global commitment to climate action and financing, recognizing the existential threat of climate change that poses to our nations. We need improved access to concessional financings through the Multilateral Vulnerability Index, or MVI, and the Loss and Damage Fund, and stronger Pacific-led partnerships that respect regional priorities, traditional knowledge, and community-driven solutions. Our vision is very clear: a resilient, prosperous, and inclusive Pacific region where no one is left behind. Through strategic collaboration and collective action, we can turn our shared aspirations into tangible, lasting outcomes for all Pacific peoples. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Excellency, for your valuable insights. It is my pleasure to invite now His Excellency Mr. Ye Xuenan, Permanent Representative of China to ESCAP, who will share insights from the East and Northeast Asia Forum. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Moderator. Dear participants, it gives me great pleasure to share some insights from the 8th Northeast Asia Multi-Stakeholder Forum on the implementation of the SDGs, which was held in Incheon, Republic of Korea from 24th to 25th October 2024 in partnership with Incheon Metropolitan City. The forum was attended by representatives from governments, civil society, academia, and business. During the 2 days, the participants discussed the progress of implementation of the 2030 agenda at the sub-regional level and engaged in deep dive learning sessions on data, youth engagement in policy making, and citizen science from the field. The forum acknowledged that on average, the sub-region's progress in achieving the 2030 agenda is uneven across the 17 goals. Good progress was achieved on Goal 1, no poverty, Goal 3, good health and well-being, Goal 4, quality education, and Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. However, there was regression from achieving Goal 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, Goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production, and Goal 13, climate action. In addition, monitoring progress in several goals was constrained due to insufficient data, including Goal 5, Goal 10, and Goal 16. In the specific, for the SDGs under review this year, the sub-region has achieved substantial progress in meeting Goal 3. Significant advancements have been achieved in child and maternal health due to improved healthcare infrastructure and policies, such as the initiatives of Healthy China 2030 and the Healthy Mongolian Initiative. Private sectors of Republic of Korea has excelled in healthcare innovation, focusing on pharmaceuticals, biomedicine, and medical devices. However, challenges persist. Aging populations and low birth rates in China, Japan, and Republic of Korea threaten the sustainability of healthcare systems, while Mongolia faces rising maternal mortality rates and limited emergency preparedness. Collaborative efforts among these nations are critical to addressing these demographic challenges. For SDG 5, Progress in increasing women's representation in public and private sectors has clearly been made, with Mongolia introducing legal quotas for elections. However, overall representation remains low due to structural barriers like discriminatory norms, career interruptions, and the lack of gender disaggregated data. Policies to reduce unpaid domestic work and encourage women's participation in STEM fields are essential for advancing gender equality. The Subregional review of SDG 8 showed that economic strategies in the subregion align closely with sustainable development. China's 14th five-year plan focuses on innovation-driven growth. Japan's new form of capitalism emphasizes sustainable economic expansion, and Mongolia's action program promotes regional development and economic diversification. Republic of Korea prioritizes livelihood recovery and innovation. Inclusive growth requires improving education, aligning skill training with market demands, and supporting women, youth, SMEs, and startups. Local initiatives targeting specific population needs are also crucial. To advance Goal 14, countries in the subregion have intensified cooperative efforts. Regional cooperation on marine conservation has intensified through the Northeast Asian Marine Protected Areas Network. Countries are addressing marine pollution via waste management, circular economy principles, and tackling land-based pollution sources like plastic waste and agricultural runoff. Ocean-based solutions are increasingly integrated into climate strategies, offering opportunities for stronger partnerships. For SDG 17, enabling mechanisms for sustainable development in the region have benefited from the growing integration of technology and data sharing initiatives. Digital tools and data sharing initiatives have enhanced the monitoring and evaluation of SDG progress, promoting transparency and accountability. However, challenges such as insufficient data, resource disparities, and governance issues hinder progress. Capacity building efforts and inclusive partnerships are crucial for addressing these gaps, enabling evidence-based policies and equitable resource distribution. Dear delegates, these SDGs updates benefited from the country's voluntary national reviews, which have regularly been prepared in the sub-region, with China and the Republic of Korea presenting their reports in 2016. China also prepared a report in 2021. Mongolia completing reviews in 2019 and also in 2023. And Japan conducting VNRs every 4 years since 2017, with one to be undertaken this year. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea also presented its review in 2021. Dear friends, continued sub-regional collaboration grounded in the principles of the 2030 Agenda is essential to sustaining and scaling the progress made in achieving sustainable development in Northeast Asia. In Northeast Asia, countries have made strides in fostering partnerships and mechanisms to drive sustainable development, including through frameworks like the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, TCS, and the Greater Tumen Initiative, GTI, and the Northeast Asian Subregional Program for Environmental Cooperation. The TCS fosters collaboration among China, Japan, and Republic of Korea in areas like public health, environmental sustainability, and cultural exchange. The GTI connects China, Mongolia, the Russian Federation, and Republic of Korea to enhance cross-border trade, energy cooperation, and infrastructure development. NISPAC has provided a platform for collaborative action on transboundary environmental challenges, showcasing the potential of strengthened partnerships to advance collective goals. These initiatives address key SDG targets, including climate action, economic growth, and reduced inequalities, by promoting dialogue, resource sharing, and regional integration, and their efforts exemplify multilateralism in achieving sustainable and inclusive development. In addition, multi-stakeholder collaborations have also been promoted through active participation in monitoring and implementing the SDGs in support of a more inclusive, networked, and effective multilateralism needed to accelerate transformative actions. Dear participants, on the path of development, no country and no one should be left behind. Although East and Northeast Asia has made impressive progress on some goals, more efforts are still required to improve the targeted responses by all sectors. We countries in East and Northeast Asia and well beyond should build a consensus on development, increase investment in development, and enhance development cooperation to forge a united, equal, balanced, and inclusive global partnership for development and accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your intervention. It is now my pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Arman Issetov, Permanent Representative of Kazakhstan to ESCAP, to report on the forum held in Almaty. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, it is an honor to address this esteemed assembly today. Allow me to present an overview of the progress made toward the achievement of key sustainable development goals in North and Central Asia. The sub-region has made significant strides in the realization of SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, SDG 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. Substantial progress has been recorded in areas such as energy efficiency, international energy cooperation, the development of sustainable and clean industries, access to ICT and the internet, as well as in improving urban air quality and waste management. However, challenges remain in the pursuit of SDG 2, Zero Hunger, SDG 13, Climate Action, and SDG 14, Life Below Water, with some concerning trends emerging. Urgent attention is needed in the following areas: addressing multidimensional health challenges, advancing the economic, social, and political empowerment of women and girls, promoting inclusive and sustainable growth, expanding access to decent and productive employment, preserving water bodies, and bridging the investment gaps critical to SDG implementation. Allow me to present you with more details. For SDG 3, good health and well-being, the sub-region has shown mixed results. While we have made notable progress in reducing maternal, newborn, and child mortality rates, challenges persist in combating communicable and non-communicable diseases, expanding health coverage, promoting healthier lifestyles, and reducing out-of-pocket health expenditures. As for SDG 5, gender equality, the sub-region has seen progress in the political empowerment of women, reflected in an increase in the share of women parliamentarians from 17.7% in 2015 to 24.8% in 2023. However, gender gaps in employment and wages persist, as do harmful practices. Furthermore, there is a critical need to enhance gender disaggregated data for more effective policy making. On SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, most member states in our sub-region achieved strong average annual per capita economic growth prior to the pandemic. Yet, several countries continue to face challenges related to economic diversification, climate change, and natural disasters. While unemployment rates have declined, informality in employment remains widespread, and labor rights compliance has deteriorated. Vulnerable groups, particularly youth, continue to face significant barriers to employment. We need to pay special attention for the achievement of SDG 14, Life Below Water. It has shown the worst regression since 2015. The ecosystems of the Aral Sea and the Caspian Sea face growing threats due to climate change, unsustainable water management practices, and pollution. For the SDG 17 Partnership for the Goals, the sub-region's external debt stocks in the region remain relatively low. However, in recent years, there has been a noticeable decline in foreign direct investment. On a positive note, all member states have made notable strides in enhancing their statistical capacity as reflected by improvements in the Statistical Performance Index. Distinguished delegates, I would like to highlight your attention to the fact that 7 out of the 9 member states in North and Central Asia are landlocked developing countries. At the same time, the sub-region is strategically located along key transport corridors that offer unique opportunities for economic integration. I hereby stress the importance of deepening regional cooperation based on principles of good neighborliness, partnership, and mutual benefit. Such cooperation is critical for advancing the SDGs in our sub-region. Regional organizations such as the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, the Economic Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Commission, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization provide valuable platforms for cooperation in areas like agriculture, environment, energy, trade, and transport. Dear friends, lastly, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Subregional Office for North and Central Asia of ESCAP for organizing last year's North and Central Asia Multi-Stakeholder Forum on the implementation of the SDGs in Almaty, Kazakhstan. This forum provided a crucial platform for fostering inclusive multi-stakeholder dialogue, which is essential for advancing the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and achieving the SDGs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency, for your remarks. I would like to turn now to the South and Southeast Asia and invite Her Excellency Ms. Vijayanti Edirisinghe, Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary of Sri Lanka to Thailand and Permanent Representative to ESCAP to provide her remarks. Excellency.
Thank you, Moderator. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address this forum and share reflections from the 8th South and Southwest Asia Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals. The forum took place between 12th to 14 November 2024 in New Delhi, hosted by NITI, ION, and the Government of India and ESCAP. We saw the participations of 9 countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Islamic Republic of Iran, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Turkey, with a diverse group of stakeholders comprised of governments, civil society, academia, private sector, and regional and international organizations to advance our shared commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Over 3 days, we examine our collective progress and challenges towards the SDGs and the 5 goals under review that resonated deeply with the realities faced by South and Southwest Asia countries. Unfortunately, the sub-region is not yet tracked to achieve any of the 17 goals. In some areas, such as responsible consumptions and productions and climate actions, we have even regrets. Still, we saw several nations and sub-regional achievements that inspire hope. The host country, India's substantial reductions of multi-dimensional poverty was propelled with robust SDGs tracking and regulating systems. We saw national plan and institutional governance mechanism aligned to the accelerate SDGs in Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, and Turkey. Targeted program and interventions have contributed to goals such as pre-health care and legislations against gender-based violence in Sri Lanka, reductions of urban poverty in Maldives, and pre-medical insurance for 34 million in Iran. Common challenges also persist. Across the sub-region, poverty disparities, gender equality, climate vulnerability, and fiscal constraint hide sustainable development. Institutional capacity gaps, insufficient data system, and barriers to private sector engagement impede sustained coordinations and scale-up actions. The forum emphasized the importance of regional cooperation in addressing shared challenges, whether through transboundary water management, regional trade facilities, or the scaling up climate adaptation strategies. Opportunities for collaboration are abundant. Enhanced South-South cooperations facilitated by platforms like ESCAP, SAC, and BIMSTEC offers a way forward. This mechanism can amplify the impact of shared resources, expertise, and innovative solutions. Dear participants, on a personal note, the forum was a powerful reminder of the potential that lies within multilateral and multi-stakeholders cooperations. The energy, determination, and collaborative spirit exhibited by participants reinforce my belief in the transformative power of partnerships. It is clear that achieving the SDGs required more than technical solution. It demands responsibility, inclusivity, and a shared vision for the future. The path to achieving the SDGs required bold actions, innovative approach, and unwavering commitment to multilateralism. Regional and sub-regional platforms must continue to foster collaboration, prioritize inclusivity, and drive transformative change. Together, government, international organizations, including ESCAP, and other partners and stakeholders can create this sustainable future for all us. As we move forward, let us harness the momentum generated by the forum. Let us work together to transform challenges into opportunities and to build a more equitable, resilient, and sustainable future for our region. By advancing the commitments made here, we can ensure that no one is left behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your remarks. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Chatwadi Chindawon, Deputy Director General, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, to share the outcomes of the SDG Forum held in Southeast Asia. Madam Director, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for the opportunity to present what Southeast Asia has been doing in the advancement of the SDGs. Let me just give you a little bit of background. Coincidentally, when the UN adopted the UN 2030 UN Sustainable Development Agenda, ASEAN also adopted the ASEAN Community Vision 2025. And with that in mind, we see the benefit of trying to find complementarities between regional and global agendas to advance sustainable development and also community building efforts in our region. And Thailand, in the capacity of the ASEAN Coordinator for Sustainable Development Cooperation, we worked very closely with ESCAP to come up with what we call the Complementarities Initiative, where we identified issues within the UN agenda and ASEAN community vision, and we try to synergize the efforts at the regional and the global levels, so that we can just achieve one goal and then we get double results. And with that, we have come up with 5 priority areas launched in 2017. The 5 priority areas are first, poverty eradication. Second, infrastructure and connectivity. Third, sustainable management of natural resources. Fourth, sustainable consumption and production. And fifth, resilience. These priority areas are interlinked and cover several SDGs which are cross-cutting in nature. For example, poverty eradication is also linked with health, nourishment, access to food, education, and employment. Infrastructure and connectivity is not just transport infrastructure or communication, but also it involves modern energy and water sanitation. Sustainable management of natural resources address waste and emission, as well as resource scarcity, which is aimed at increasing economic, competitive, and sustainable growth in our region. Sustainable consumption and production focuses on the efforts to decouple economic activities from environmental pressure or degradation. And fifth, resilience is not just economic resilience or society, but also we focus our efforts on risk management that arises from natural disasters. We have worked with ESCAP and also countries in Southeast Asia, which now comprise 11 countries, ASEAN member states, and also Timor-Leste. And we have worked also closely with the ASEAN Secretariat to link or to synergize or align our efforts with the global agenda on SDGs. And this year is, again, will be another pivotal year for our region, as ASEAN is also adopting a new community vision. We called it ASEAN Community Vision 2045. But again, the sustainability or sustainable development theme is also quite dominant in the new vision. And with the new vision and also the emerging or evolving trends on sustainable development, we are also working on a new or an updated version of the Complementarities Initiative. The rationale and the objective remains the same, which is to help advance the SDG implementation in our region and to contribute to countries in this region in transiting into green growth and sustainable growth. We also try to take into account the trends on, for example, like ESGs and also the climate agenda, so that the new Complementarities Initiative reflect the current challenges and also equip us with increased capacity to respond to emerging challenges in the SDGs implementation. What we are trying to focus now is to reprioritize the focus areas. So that is correspond with the current situation. And we are envisioning to have new priority areas on first green finance, because you know I think to achieve the SDGs by 2030, we still need a few $1 trillion of investment. Second, resilience against climate change. You know, climate action is something that very eminent, not just in the UN agenda, but also in our region, and we are working with countries in this region to advance our climate action. And in ASEAN, we are also establishing the ASEAN Climate Change Center, spearheaded by Brunei Darussalam. So this center will be also another instrumental mechanism to advance climate action in our region. Third is energy transition. And we are also putting a lot of efforts to advance clean energy transition within the framework of the ASEAN Power Grid. And we have power integration project in sub-region. Okay, it should be sub-region because it's Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore power integration project, and also another sub-regional framework, which is Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines power integration project. So these are also something that we are trying to work on in our region regarding energy transition. Fourth is effective digital transformation. ASEAN is working on, I think, the world's first regional level digital economy agreement framework. This is to drive digital trade and digital economy, and also to harness digital innovations in propelling growth and also sustainability agenda in the region. Last but not least is again networking and partnerships. We see a lot of importance of Goal 17 because no one can really achieve the sustainable development or address the sustainability challenges on their own. So we are again trying to build network with not only among countries in the region, but also our partners outside the region. We are working very closely with countries like Switzerland, Norway, and also we are also reaching out to partners like Australia, ROK in Japan, to come up with more concrete cooperation on the SDGs implementation. Well, in conclusion, let me just reiterate that with the upcoming vision of ASEAN this year, we are actually renewing our commitment to push forward the SDGs implementation in our region. And this is also consistent with the theme of the ASEAN Shine this year, Malaysia, inclusivity and sustainability. And I believe that through these processes, which are complementary, we can really achieve sustainable development where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Director, for your perspectives. I'm very happy now to invite Ms. Vilani Rimengasu, representing the Persons with Disabilities constituency, to share the insights from the major groups. Ms. Vilani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, we meet today at a crucial juncture. Just 5 years remain to realize the 2030 agenda, yet progress across the Asia-Pacific remains lackluster, with almost half of the indicators not even measurable. While some progress is made in areas such as zero hunger, SDG 2, quality education, SDG 4, clean energy, and SDG 7, and life and land, SDG 15, challenges persist in gender equality, SDG 5, economic growth, SDG 8, sustainable cities, SDG 11, peace and justice, SDG 16, and means of implementation, SDG 17. Reckoning that, why is sub-regional implementation critical? For small island developing states like ours, the sub-regional approach is essential. Our shared vulnerabilities, limited resources, climate change, and external economic shocks require tailored solutions that address our unique challenges. Yet, data caps continue to hinder our ability to track progress effectively, particularly in industry innovation SDG 9 and reducing inequalities SDG 10. To bridge these gaps, we must strengthen multi-stakeholder partnerships, improve data systems, avoid corporate capture of our multilateralism, and amplify our collective voices at the global stage. A significant step forward has been the adoption of the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, MVI, which highlights the need for concessional financing and debt sustainability measures that reflect the Pacific's realities. But we must go further by mainstreaming resilience into policies to ensure that financing aligns with our development priorities in line with the Pact for the Future key actions. For instance, the Pacific faced an urgent health crisis, particularly with the rise of NCDs, which strain already fragile healthcare systems. Workforce shortages, high migration rates, and burnout continue to impact service delivery. Moreover, critical gaps in data on sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, and adolescent health hinder effective policymaking in the absence of equitable financing. A holistic, people-centered approach is needed, one that integrates mental health, youth well-being, and social protection systems to strengthen resilience. As ocean nations, our future depends on marine conservation, sustainable fisheries, reducing marine pollution, and combating illegal fishing. While the Pacific has championed global ocean governance through initiatives like the Blue Pacific Continent, we must scale up investments in climate-resilient fisheries, enforce stronger conservation measures, and integrate SDG 14 into national development plans. At the heart of our sub-regional efforts is the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, for instance, which plays a key role in coordinating regional responses, facilitating dialogue, and advocating for sustainable financing mechanisms. Through PIFs, the Pacific can leverage regional frameworks to drive collective action on SDGs that require stronger cross-border collaboration. The Asia-Pacific's challenges demand bold, transformative action. We call on our development partners to align financing mechanisms with Asia-Pacific priorities, ensuring aid effectiveness, support technology transfer, digital innovation, and regional centers of excellence, strengthen sub-regional institutions like PIFs to drive SDG implementation, protect civic space, uphold democratic values, curb corporate capture, and foster inclusive international cooperation by discouraging retrogressive measures, restrictive laws, and stipulations that endanger our collective aspirations for democracy and human rights. In conclusion, we stand at a pivotal moment. Data caps, financing constraints, and systemic barriers and vulnerabilities threaten to undermine our efforts to fully achieve the 2030 Agenda, requiring an inclusive multilateralism that walks the talk on transformation. Dear colleagues, the next 5 years must be defined by urgent collective action. We cannot afford another decade of empty promises while our communities bear the burden of systemic injustices. It is time to change the system. It is time to change the system and shift the power towards developing justice, towards a future where no one is left behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lani, for your insights. So this remarks concludes our panel discussion. Before passing the mic back to the chair, allow me to share a reflection to summarize the great interventions we heard now here. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for sharing your insights, reflections, and valuable perspectives during this important session of the APFSD Subregional Dialogue. Your contributions have shed light on the critical challenges we face in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. While we acknowledge that the overall SDG outlook presents significant hurdles, it is heartening to see that countries at the subregional level are coming together to identify shared solutions. This spirit of collaboration exemplifies the resilience, determination, and innovation required to overcome persistent barriers and unlock new pathways towards sustainable development. Today's discussion reaffirms the vital role of regional and sub-regional cooperation as a catalyst for progress. By pooling resources, knowledge, and best practices, countries can tackle complex issues more effectively and foster inclusive growth that benefits everyone. Thank you once again to our panelists and participants for your dedication to advancing a more sustainable, inclusive, and cooperative future for our region. Thank you for all.
Thank you, Mr. Basanjaf, for the great moderation, and thank you to the excellent panelists. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I am pleased to invite the distinguished delegates to intervene on Agenda Item 4, Sub-Item B, implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at the regional level. I will open the floor for statements from delegates in the speaking order as received from the Secretariat. I again kindly remind delegates to limit their statement to no longer than 3 minutes to allow all delegates the opportunity to speak. I recognize the distinguished delegate from Fiji to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Palau.
Chair, the progress achieved on the SDGs in the sub-regions have been uneven and many disparities and gaps remain. Climate change continues to threaten livelihoods while progress on the climate-related goals is regressing. National plans and coordination mechanisms must be aligned with the goals to effectively accelerate implementation. Persistent gaps in data and in how available data is used need to be addressed in the context of evidence-based policymaking and progress assessment. A recurring issue is the burden of reporting on the implementation of several frameworks and agendas. Although there has been significant progress in the collection of data and indicators in the Pacific, gaps remain which limit the ability to track progress and develop targeted interventions. Hence, the dire need to collaborate with the international community and regional bodies to provide the necessary technical and financial assistance to ensure that no country is left behind. In this regard, we are appreciative of our collaboration with the Pacific community and the ESCAP Secretariat for the development of guidelines to assist Pacific policymakers planners and statisticians to produce high-quality and timely statistics that could be used to report on the national implementation of sub-regional, regional, and global frameworks. We also recognize that additional support is required to adopt a coordinated Pacific approach to assess the challenges encountered in overseeing and assessing the execution of the various agendas and their related indicators, while understanding the internal and external demands placed on national statistical systems. Post-pandemic, developed countries like Fiji and many others had significant increases in debt levels, and assessing development finance became vital. However, assessing finance for implementation of the SDGs has become a major challenge, compounded with prevailing complex financial architecture and rigorous processes. The issue has now become not on whether we want to fully invest in the SDGs, but how we can afford and access it. To advance the progress of the 2030 Agenda, Fiji is focusing on innovative financing solutions through the Green and Blue Bond Initiative, parametric insurance, exploring the Pacific Catastrophe Risk Assessment and Financing Initiative, strengthening public-private partnerships, civil society collaboration, and seeking technical assistance from development partners. With only 5 years left to the 2030 deadline, we need to scale up SDG financing. Advancing Fiji's progress on the SDGs necessitates a united and concerted national effort. We wholeheartedly welcome and encourage the contributions of every individual and stakeholder. We acknowledge that small island developing states cannot fully achieve the 2030 Agenda alone. We need multi-sectoral partnership, multilateralism, and support from the international communities, civil societies, and business communities to advance the progress of the agenda and deliver to our people. Coordinated action and multi-stakeholder partnerships, better understanding of the science, policy, and society intersection, unlocking of financing needs, encouragement of innovation by policymakers and implementers, and strengthened collaboration among diverse stakeholders has now become more essential in our collective efforts. This is towards the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Palau to be followed by the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The government of Palau remains deeply committed to upholding the principles and advancing the objectives of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS and our long-term approach as a region, the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. At the sub-regional level, the Pacific particularly, small island developing states are showing promising progress. At the same time, our economic situation remains precariously fragile with high levels of debt and persistent inflation. SIDS remain on the front line of the climate crisis, not of our own making, with extreme weather events and rising sea levels no longer threatening but actually impacting our lives and livelihoods. It is for this reason that Palau, as chair of the Alliance of Small Island States, calls for urgently strengthening support for the Pacific region and for robust mechanisms that enhance implementation, coordination, and tracking progress on the 2030 Agenda and the ABAS. On advancing progress at the sub-regional level, allow me to draw on 3 main points. First, SIDS require more tailored support from the international community and the UN system. The Pacific relies heavily on the UN system's sub-regional and multi-country offices, and ensuring that they have the resources and expertise to support SIDS in addressing our unique development challenges remain crucial. We call for the use of the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index among the UN, MDBs, and the IFIs. This will help integrate the experiences and needs of the Pacific Islands into development support and capacity building, as well as unlocking urgently needed concessional financing towards climate and ocean action. Second, we need to enhance data collection, improving the quality of national statistics, and facilitating the development of systems for monitoring and evaluating the implementation of the SDGs. The mandate within the ABAS to establish a regional coordinating mechanism for the ACE-SIDS region will be crucial to contributing to the framework's monitoring and evaluation framework that is currently being developed. AOSIS will follow up on the strengthening of the relevant divisions and multi-country offices to ensure that this mandate is fulfilled at the earliest opportunity. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we emphasize the need for stronger financing mechanisms to support SIDS, especially in the wake of the global economic challenges and debt crisis we face. The creation of more flexible, affordable, and accessible financing options for climate adaptation, ocean-based economies, sustainable infrastructure, and public health initiatives is essential. These mechanisms must not introduce new debt or worsen the debt situations of the Pacific, but ought to focus on breaking the vicious debt cycle that SIDS continue to find themselves in. In closing, Mr. Chair, Palau reiterates its commitment to the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda. We call on UN, ESCAP, and the international community to strengthen support for the Pacific sub-region, ensuring that no country is left behind. The time for coordinated, science-based, and inclusive action is now, and we look forward to working with all stakeholders to achieve a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for SIDS. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now call on a distinguished delegate from Russian Federation to be followed by the distinguished delegate representing the APRSM NGO constituency.
Спасибо, уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые участники форума. Спустя почти 10 лет после принятия амбициозной повестки 2030, наш регион, как и весь мир, значительно отстает от выполнения обозначенных в ней целей. Как можно преодолеть существующие негативные тенденции? На наш взгляд, добиться этого можно путем последовательной совместной работы и консолидации усилий для укрепления международного взаимодействия в духе подлинной многосторонности и взаимопомощи, обеспечения конструктивного торгово-экономического и технологического сотрудничества на региональном, субрегиональном и межрегиональном уровнях, более широкого вовлечения бизнеса в формирование эффективных государственно-частных партнерств. Это важно для мобилизации финансовых ресурсов для осуществления национальных стратегий устойчивого развития, повышения осведомленности населения о целях и задачах этой концепции. Это особенно важно и для эффективного решения пока так и нерешенных вопросов передачи технологий. Отдельно хотели бы обратить внимание на важность последовательного совершенствования мониторинга выполнения повестки 2030, использования достоверных страновых данных с опорой на материалы национальных статистических служб, включение обязательного аналитического компонента при разработке докладов и выработке рекомендаций по проблематике устойчивого развития со стороны органов и организаций системы ООН. Россия является одним из лидеров работы на статистическом треке. Готовы делиться соответствующей экспертизой Российской Федеральной службы государственной статистики со всеми заинтересованными сторонами. Наш опыт показывает, что национальные государственно-частные партнерства, построенные на принципах солидарной ответственности и конструктивного взаимодействия государства, бизнеса и всего гражданского общества, позволят уверенно идти по пути достижения национальных целей развития. Одним из наших безусловных приоритетов является обеспечение здоровья и благополучия наших граждан, что соответствует СУР-3. С этого года в России начинается реализация национального проекта «Продолжительная и активная жизнь», на который до 2030 года выделено более 2 триллионов рублей. Ставим перед собой задачи не только по укреплению здоровья населения, но и по повышению качества медицинских кадров, расширению использования цифровых технологий в медицине, обновлению существующей медицинской инфраструктуры. Важным направлением работы считаем обеспечение гендерного равенства, что на концептуальном уровне нашло свое отражение в национальной стратегии действий в интересах женщин на 2023-2030 год. Сегодня необходимо способствовать приобретению женщинами технических знаний и навыков, необходимых в цифровой экономике, расширять их участие в высокотехнологичных отраслях. Полагаем необходимым также работать над формированием эффективной системы профилактики социального неблагополучия женщин. Значительного прогресса мы достигли в ЦУР-8, о чем уже рассказывала моя коллега. Еще раз отмечу, что безработица в нашей стране на рекордно низком уровне – 2,3%. Значимым считаем вопросы сохранения морских экосистем. Принципы устойчивого развития морских территорий нашли отражение в наших стратегических документах, в том числе в морской доктрине Российской Федерации, принятой в 2022 году. Вопросы партнерств для устойчивого развития ЦУР-17 традиционно имеют приоритетное значение для нашей страны. Россия остается ответственным международным донором. Общий объем нашей помощи развитию на 2023 год развивающимся странам составил порядка 1 миллиарда и 100 миллионов долларов США. Уделяем также большое значение проектному сотрудничеству под эгидой ESCAP, где за счет российского добровольного взноса реализуются проекты технического содействия, направленные на помощь странам-реципиентам в реализации наиболее важных целей и задач в области устойчивого развития. Уважаемый господин председатель, выполнение целей и задач повестки 2030 возможно исключительно путем последовательной консолидации усилий всех стран. Нам всем необходимо работать в духе конструктивного сотрудничества не только на благо региона, но и на благо всего человечества. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the APR-SAM NGO constituency to be followed by a distinguished delegate from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Chair. We are speaking on behalf of the APR-SAM NGO constituency. We are alarmed that only one of the 21 SDG 17 indicators is on track, with 5 regressing since 2015. Beyond this chamber, trade and investment have been significantly affected by resource extraction, geopolitical tensions, and conflicts. Digitalization is increasingly used to undermine civic spaces, profit and control energy and transitions amid the rush for critical minerals. Financing for sustainable development remains uncertain, with donor countries backtracking on ODA commitments and pushing privatization, generating mounting debt for developing countries. We thus recommend to scale up financing for development, ensuring that donor countries fulfill and exceed their 0.7% GNI commitments, focusing on the quality of aid through the establishment of UN Convention on International Development Cooperation. Address digital gaps within countries and between high and low income countries through UN Technology Facilitation Mechanism. Prioritize the adoption of the UN Tax Convention.
Cancel all unsustainable, odious, and illegitimate debts, and demand transparency, accountability, reparations, and debt-free support for public and social services through a binding UN framework convention on sovereign debt. Democratize multilateral processes to implement all the reforms in the Pact for the Future key actions, especially the Security Council. Protect civic spaces and discourage retrogressive measures, restrictive laws, and stipulations that endanger our collective aspirations for democracy and human rights. Trade agreements must be people-centered, excluding invasive neoliberal instruments such as ISDS and TRIPS-style clauses. Ownership of and access to minerals should be fair and allow developing countries to process minerals domestically. Mobilize multilateral political will to reform the international financial and trade architecture vis-a-vis human rights and SDGs compatibility impact assessment of the corporate ventures for robust regulatory and accountability mechanisms protecting the interest of both people and the planet. Excellencies, to realize the SDGs, we need an action-oriented, bold, and convincing multilateralism to translate transformation on the ground for both people and the planet. Ultimately, we say, change the system, shift the power, development justice now. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegates. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Bangladesh to be followed by the distinguished delegate representing the Euro-Asian Economic Commission.
Thank you, Chair. As representatives of the South Asian region, a regional home to nearly a quarter of the world's population, we carry a profound responsibility to ensure that our collective progress is inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. There are several key challenges in achieving our SDGs. For example, the economic disparities and social inequality, the gaps between the wealth brackets continue to expand, with vulnerable populations struggling to access essential services. Infrastructure and connectivity, numerous regions, especially in rural areas, lack access to clean water, sanitation, and reliable electricity. Investment in such sustainable infrastructure is absolutely critical. Our youth unemployment and skills development, with nearly 60% of South Asia's populace under the age of 35, it is crucial for us to equip our youth with skills pertinent to the modern economy, emphasizing digital literacy and entrepreneurship. For climate vulnerability, the rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and resource depletion jeopardizing food security and livelihoods. We need regional cooperation in climate resilience planning. And of course, who else can forget the financing for SDGs? The constraints in our fiscal capacity, the reliance on foreign aid, and inefficient resource allocation present substantial obstacles to sustainable development. Bangladesh's calls to action the strengthening sub-regional cooperation for our SDGs. To overcome these challenges and expediting SDG implementation, collective action is imperative in the following areas: enhancing regional trade and economic integration. There are platforms such as SAARC and BIMSTEC that have facilitated economic and environmental collaborations, promoting knowledge sharing and policy alignment across borders. But we need to be doing more in enabling SAARC as a constructive force for our regional development. Investing in human capital development, we will prioritize investments in education, vocational training, and healthcare, which is essential to build a resilient workforce that is adaptable to the evolving global economy. For the third point, sustainable infrastructure and smart cities. With urbanization accelerating across South Asia, it is vital to ensure our cities are equipped with green infrastructure, efficient public transport, and digital connectivity. Leveraging digital innovation for development is also crucial. Expanding broadband access, advancing e-governance, and nurturing digital entrepreneurship can propel inclusive economic growth. আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the Eurasian Economic Commission to be followed by distinguished delegate representing South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Eurasian Economic Commission, I extend a warm welcome to all participants of this important event. It is an honor to address you today as we review regional progress and explore opportunities for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We strongly believe that regional economic integration serves as a key driver of sustainable and inclusive economic growth for the member states of the Eurasian Economic Union. By fostering collaboration and shared objectives, regional integration provides countries with additional opportunities to make significant progress in implementing the UN 2030 agenda. This is not only a theoretical statement, but it is also supported by practice. Today, more than 10 years after the establishment of the Eurasian Economic Commission, connection between the regional integration processes and the SDG implementation is even more evident in our work. However, achieving the SDGs remains a formidable challenge, particularly for countries with limited internal resources and self-sustaining economic development. In this context, enhancing trade and investment cooperation with partners who can assist with financing and ensuring the import of necessary products becomes a key factor in ensuring sustainable development. This creates opportunities for emerging economies to achieve their economic goals, and in this regard, the Eurasian Economic Union has a special mission to fulfill. As the world grapples with crises such as climate change, pandemics, and geopolitical conflicts, progress toward the SDGs has halted or even reversed in some areas. This alarming trend underscores the need for stronger multilateral and regional cooperation to address these challenges effectively. The Eurasian Economic Union's regulatory framework has enabled positive trends in advancing the SDGs across the Eurasian region. Today, regional integration in Eurasia has reached a qualitatively new level. The Union, established under the Treaty on the Eurasian Economic Union signed in 2014, is an ambitious project with immense potential for further development. The treaty outlines key goals, including creating conditions for sustainable economic development to improve the living standards of member states' populations, establishing a single market for goods, services, capital, and labor, and ensuring comprehensive modernization, cooperation, and competitiveness of national economies within the global economy. To achieve these goals, the Union has established an internal market and implemented coordinated policies in key sectors of the economy. Here, I would like to highlight two. First, notably, progress in achieving the SDGs is more effective in areas subject to supranational regulatory measures. We see this in the following areas: labor migration. Cooperation with the member states in the regulation of labor migration within the Union contributes to a more efficient distribution of labor force, unemployment reduction, as well as establishment of decent working conditions for citizens, as well as technical regulation, foreign trade policy, industrial and agricultural cooperation. Second point, by continuously expanding the integration agenda to include new areas, we're increasing the alignment between Eurasian integration processes and the SDGs. This dynamic approach ensures that our regional efforts remain responsive to global challenges. The main integration tool, the EAEU law, is also continuously developing. The law broadly embraces the UN 2030 agenda. Most of the measures and mechanisms included in our strategic documents will bring the member states closer to the implementation of the agenda in the field of SDGs 2030. The refinement of supranational regulation, development of norms, rules, adaptation of the union law to the demands of the time is contributing to the SDG achievement by the union's member states. The Union is also actively engaged in monitoring SDG progress through its Eurasian monitoring mechanism for the SDGs, which includes a regional list of indicators
Kindly
for
asking
achieving the
that you
goals.
please wrap up.
This mechanism allows us to assess progress objectively and identify areas where further action is needed. By doing so, we contribute to the global effort to achieve the SDGs while addressing the unique challenges and opportunities of our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation to be followed by the distinguished delegate representing the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of Secretary General of SAARC, I express my gratitude for the opportunity to represent SAARC at this forum. Just last week in Colombo, SAARC held its Intergovernmental Expert Group on Poverty Alleviation, where we dealt on SDG targets and indicators for SAARC region, SAARC Plan of Action on Poverty Alleviation, and SAARC Development Goals, priority policies for implementation of SDGs, and monitoring mechanisms for SDGs. South Asia's DGP at regional level grew at 6.8% in 2023, since sustained high growth is essential to create gainful employment, eliminate poverty, and improve prosperity and well-being. South Asia has made progress in reducing maternal, under 5, and neonatal mortality rates, as well as adolescent birth rates. There has been progress in the seats held by women in national parliament and local governments, as well as in managerial positions, but progress is still required to reach the mark. SAARC, in its collaboration, has developed several documents to assist the region in achieving its development goals: the Regional Action Plan on Adolescent Pregnancy, Regional Framework on Nutrition and Sanitation, SAARC Plan of Action on Poverty Alleviation, SAARC Framework for Action for Education 2030, and the SAARC Action Plan for Climate Change. Excellencies, the region is committed in reaching its goals and SDGs, which are largely aligned with the member states' development plan and strategies. But we should also highlight that the region has its challenges in economic growth, technical support, and financing gaps. Our partnership with ADB and UN agencies such as UNICEF, UNFPA, WHO, FAO, and UNESCO has resulted in fruitful collaborations in the region in advancing community health and nutrition, education, poverty alleviation, understanding the challenges of climate change, women empowerment, and advancing for children and adolescents. While South Asia has emerged as a region that has made progress towards the SDGs after the serious setback of COVID-19 pandemic, we still need to leverage a collective approach that enhances regional economic integration, knowledge and best practice collaboration, and redefine relationships among stakeholders to improve the quality of life of the people of this region. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat to be followed by the distinguished delegate representing Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to speak on behalf of the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat and align my remarks with those of the distinguished representatives from Fiji and Palau. For the Pacific, implementing the 2030 Agenda is inseparable from our 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, our collective vision for a resilient, peaceful, and prosperous region where all Pacific peoples can lead free, healthy, and productive lives. The 2050 strategy is our long-term blueprint for regional cooperation, aligning closely with the SDGs across 7 key areas: political leadership and regionalism, people-centered development, peace and security, resource and economic development, climate change and disasters, ocean and environment, and technology and connectivity. To translate the 2050 vision into action, our leaders endorsed the 2050 Implementation Plan, which sets clear goals, outcomes, and regional actions. A monitoring, evaluation, and learning plan was also developed using existing SDG indicators to streamline reporting and reduce duplication. At the 2024 Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting, our leaders endorsed the baseline report for the 2050 strategy, providing a regional picture of SDG progress. However, significant data gaps remain, especially in gender, health, peace and security, and infrastructure. Closing these gaps is critical to ensuring no one is left behind. On a few priorities for the Pacific's 2030 agenda, climate action must be a development imperative. Climate change is the greatest threat to Pacific livelihoods, security, and well-being. As you have heard, the Pacific contributes less than 1% of global emissions, and yet we face the most severe impacts. The Pacific Resilience Facility, a Pacific-owned and led financing initiative, supports locally driven climate resilience projects. We call for global support to fully operationalize this facility. There must be locally led and inclusive solutions. The Pacific champions the integration of traditional knowledge with modern science for sustainable, locally relevant solutions. Our leadership in multilateral engagements through the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea, the ICJ advisory opinions, and our forum leaders' declarations on maritime boundaries and statehood demonstrates our capacity and commitment to shape global reforms. Pacific-led initiatives not only address our region's challenges, but also contribute to global efforts on the same. We call for the strengthening of regional cooperation and financing. The 2050 implementation plan drives collective action across governance, economic development, and ocean conservation. We call for accessible and simplified climate finance mechanisms, especially for SIDS. Excellencies, achieving the 2030 agenda in the Pacific requires strong partnerships, resources, and alignment of global efforts with regional priorities. We urge international partners to support Pacific-led solutions, including through the operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund and the Multi-Vulnerability Index. The Pacific Islands Forum stands united in advancing the 2030 agenda. We call on our partners to stand with us in implementing urgent action now and in securing a resilient and sustainable future for all. Vinakava Kalevu, Foyaxia, and thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the final speaker of this sub-agenda item, the distinguished delegate representing the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies and distinguished guests, I articulate this statement on behalf of BIMSTEC, a regional economic organization founded in 1997, consisting of 5 South Asian countries and 2 Southeast Asian nations. Mr. Chair, needless to state, the BIMSTEC is unequivocally and unreservedly committed to achieving the SDG goals by 2030. That said, Excellencies, the BIMSTEC is proactive and is highly engaged in SDG dialogues, forums, seminars, and deliberations, given the seminal and pivotal nature and transformational catalyst, the SDG, which presents to 7 member countries of BIMSTEC. Excellencies, distinguished guests, the BIMSTEC consists of a total populace of 1.8 billion, or 22% of the global population, with a total combined GDP of USD 5.3 trillion only. I wish to seek your indulgence to accentuate the fact the share of GDP of the BIMSTEC countries is less than 5% of total global GDP, despite being home to 22% of the global population. As a matter of fact, just for record purposes, the global GDP is around USD 115 trillion. And all these 7 member countries are less than the middle income category. Further, the region has a marked disparities in all economic and social spheres and provinces that exist amongst these BIMSTEC countries, ranging from poverty, unemployment, instability, undernourishment, and climatic challenges, amongst others. Mr. Chair and Excellencies, on behalf of BIMSTEC Secretariat and members of the BIMSTEC, I earnestly and manifestly entreat and beseech the international multilateral institutions and other noted organizations, including the estimable ESCAP, to extend more focus, more attention, more cooperation, and more assistance as deemed pertinent in order to realize the SDGs in BIMSTEC countries. Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished guests, in conclusion, these efficacious and result-oriented courses of action could foster, nature, and nurture and positively stimulate a region of 1.8 billion populace to augment and to elevate to middle income category of USD 13,500 by 2030 from the current GDP per capita of less than 2,900 US dollars. With due deference and due respect to place the combined GDP of BIMSTEC in perspective, because I did state it was only 5.3 trillion. Excellencies, this figure is less than the market capitalization of two of the five largest IT or Magnificent Seven corporates in the world. Or, if I put it differently, it is less than twice of defense spending by the world last year, which was approximately USD 2.75 trillion. Let us make the global leaders and policymakers the intrinsic and inherent, unprecedented economic and social utility of attainment of the SDG 17 goals. I thank your attention.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. Distinguished delegates and participants, in the interest of time, we will move on to the sub-agenda item 4C. For delegates who wish to speak under 4B, we will accommodate their request in the time allotted for statements in sub-agenda item 4C if time allows. For the reporting and posting of statements online, the Secretariat will note the corresponding sub-agenda item you have indicated on the statement request. Let us now proceed with the last sub-item under agenda item 4, which is the United Nations Development System-wide results at the regional level in Asia and the Pacific in support of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. At the outset, we will hear a presentation on the highlights of the system-wide results of the United Nations Development System at the regional level by the co-vice chairs of the Regional Collaborative Platform for Asia and the Pacific. It is my pleasure now to invite Ms. Armida Alice Chabana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to take the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, 2024 brought member states together at the Summit of the Future. Following the summit, we now have a Pact for the Future, a Global Digital Compact, and a Declaration on Future Generation. The relevance of outcomes cannot be understated in our region, as our region is living in a world of climate change, rapid digital transformation, and demographic shifts. In the 2023 summit, the UN system identified 6 transitions for the SDG acceleration, which are all relevant to the acceleration of the 2030 Agenda and the implementation of the Pact for the Future in our region. These are entry points which have catalytic effects across SDGs, and they are food systems, energy access and affordability, digital connectivity, education, jobs and social protection, and climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Our 2025 SDG Progress Report provides evidence through data on the areas which lack progress or are even regressing. On Goal 13, climate action, the region has been regressing, especially with the slow uptake of climate change policies in the region. Progress on Goal 8, decent work and economic growth, has been slow, as sustainable business practices around tourism and material resource efficiency and developing strategies to support youth employment leave room for improvement in the region. On Goal 17, Partnership for the Goals, data and statistical capabilities still need to be strengthened. Together with countries, resident coordinators, and UN country teams, we have collaborated more closely than ever before to drive innovation and to build action-oriented momentum through more integrated service delivery and partnership. Allow me to share some of the highlights of our collaborative work in 2024. Climate action remains one of the most pressing issues in the region. With COP30 coming up in Brazil, we have been working to support the development of countries' NDCs. We also organized the 5th International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies, bringing over 200 participants to highlight the importance of clean air to the environment, health, and economy. We have continued our support of the implementation of the UN Secretary General's Early Warning for All initiative. 2024 marked 20 years since the Indian Ocean tsunami. A joint publication with ASEAN highlighted the lessons learned and reinforced the importance of early warning systems and the importance of inclusivity in disaster risk reduction. The Early Warning System for All Regional Multi-Stakeholder Forum also brought together over 1,800 participants to discuss ways forward and to embed gender equity and inclusiveness in designing early warning systems. Gender equality and inclusion are also central to our work, as 2025 is also the 30-year review to mark the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. We have made strong progress in reducing poverty, supporting girls' access to education, and improving maternal health. But as highlighted in the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on the Beijing Plus 30 Review and the 2024 Asia-Pacific Care Forum, women still shoulder the disproportionate burden of unpaid care and domestic work. Between 2024 and 2050, the number of people aged over 65 in our region will almost double from 103 million to 996 million. We need to harness the potential of the care economy to tap into the significant opportunities for aging societies in our region. To respond to the diverse needs of the region in digital transformation, in 2024, we also launched an issue-based coalition on digital transformation co-led by ESCAP, ITU, and UNESCO. The group supports the implementation of the Global Digital Compact, ensuring that we remain committed to close the digital divide and leverage technology in accelerating progress towards SDGs. Meanwhile, we need to be fully aware of the risks and challenges that arise brought forth by artificial intelligence. To measure and monitor progress in our region, we must not forget the importance of data and statistics and working with and through the resident coordinators and UN country teams to build capacities of national statistical systems and promote whole-of-society approaches to data collection and analysis. We have achieved continued progress in data collection for SDG indicators. In 2024, we have reached 54% in sufficient data reported for SDG indicators, up from 52% in 2023 and 47% in 2021. The recently published SDG Progress Report 2025 takes innovative approaches through engaging communities to close the data gap. To align with the UN Decade of Healthy Aging and the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, we have also organized the Asia-Pacific Regional Conference on Population Aging, convening government international organizations, CSO, as well as stakeholders to explore the interlinkages between aging, climate change, and technology. In our fast-changing world, our UN family seeks to promote intergenerational solidarity and build inclusive societies for all ages. To this end, let me commend the efforts of the various agencies who are a part of our regional collaborative platform in the progress we have made as one UN family. Let me also thank UNDP and DCO, who serve alongside ESCAP as part of the platform's secretariat. Excellencies, distinguished participants, the major global processes in 2025 offer us key opportunities. The 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, which will take place from 30 June to 3rd July in Spain, and the 2nd World Summit for Social Development, which will take place from 4 to 6 November this year in Qatar, are just two of the potential forums for strengthened commitments and outlining definitive action. The COP30 conference and the updating of NDCs provide an opportunity to accelerate climate action. In Asia and the Pacific, the UN family continues to act as one. In 2024, we have brought regional perspective to the forefront of global processes. We look to further engagement with countries to share our voices and perspectives. At the national level, we will continue to deliver more integrated and coherent support to the resident coordinators and UN country teams. This is something that my co-vice chair, Kani Wignaraja, will speak to in more detail. Let me now hand over to Kani, my co-vice chair, and I think the conference officer, to play the video message by Kani Wignaraja. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, the United Nations Development System continues to be a key partner in advancing climate action, economic recovery, human rights, equality, and digital transformation. Today, I am so pleased to share some key achievements that demonstrate how our initiatives under the Regional Collaborative Platform have effectively supported the UN resident coordinators and the UN country teams to strengthen national efforts to achieve sustainable development outcomes. A first area of note is strengthening climate action and promoting environmental sustainability across the Asia-Pacific, which has been pivotal to our joint work. Regional forums such as the Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth and the Asia Low Emissions Development Strategies Partnership Forum convene governments from over 40 countries to exchange and discuss strategies for decarbonization and jointly developing solutions for low-carbon futures and to advance renewable energy pathways. By supporting countries in implementing proactive disaster risk reduction strategies, the UN has strengthened regional resilience to climate-related shocks and crises that we see almost every day. In a region home to the highest number of recurring natural disasters, this has been a critical effort. Now, in this context, the Early Warning for All initiative engaged over 1,800 stakeholders across our region to promote multi-hazard early warning systems that help safeguard vulnerable communities. If I can illustrate with a couple of notable achievements, this includes Fiji's piloting of anticipatory parametric insurance and Bhutan's climate projections that informed national adaptation plans and integrates national DRR into resilience and development planning. A second area is promotion of human rights, gender equality, and social inclusion. High-impact events such as the Asia-Pacific Regional Consultations on CSW 68 and the Ministerial Conference on Beijing Plus 30 have brought together government, civil society, and international organizations to address emerging challenges and to align on actions. Focusing again in on country, the tailored support to Indonesia, Laos PDR, Malaysia, PNG, and the Philippines has strengthened national capacities to uphold international human rights obligations. Our regional group has facilitated exchanges in global processes of learning and provided direct support on UN special procedures, contributing to stronger implementation of the normative commitments in these complex contexts. A third area of focus has been the contribution to promoting inclusive economic growth and recovery. The Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions has become integral to our regional support. Our collective actions in this field have supported countries like Nepal, the Philippines, and Vietnam in securing over 1.5 million from the SDG funding windows. And roadmaps for Cambodia and Indonesia were also advanced, aligning their national targets with the SDGs. A fourth and growing area of engagement is in digital transformation and innovation. We have fostered regional digital collaboration, empowering countries to harness innovation and technology-based solutions. These are but illustrations, and many more are captured in our joint results report. If I had to sum it up in just one sentence, the cumulative impact of the UN's regional support is about strengthening national capacities to addressing the present and pressing challenges of our times, in country and across the region. By leveraging regional expertise, your data, knowledge, resources, and partnerships, we hope the results presented show how our UN development system adds value together. We remain committed to providing this timely, integrated support to meet your evolving needs in this dynamic region, and we work together with government, civil society, and the private sector and our international partners to do so. A shared prosperity and peace with the well-being of all people and the planet being assured is in everyone's best interest. Thank you.
Many thanks, Madam Executive Secretary, and your fellow co-chair on the very comprehensive presentation on the United Nations Development System-wide results at the regional level in Asia and the Pacific in support of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Thank you both. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I am now pleased to invite the distinguished delegates to intervene on Agenda Item 4C on the United Nations Development System-wide results at the regional level in Asia and the Pacific in support of the implementation of 2030 Agenda. I will open the floor for statements from delegates in the speaking orders as received from the Secretariat. I kindly again remind delegates to limit your statement to no longer than 3 minutes to allow all delegates the opportunity to speak. I recognize the distinguished delegate from Malaysia, to be followed by the distinguished delegate representing Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Malaysia reaffirms its commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and acknowledges the essential role of the United Nations in accelerating progress towards the SDG. The Asia-Pacific region is diverse with varying level of economic development, governance structures, and social priorities. The UN can help foster policy alignment, promote cross-border partnerships, and provide technical assistance tailored to the region's need. Malaysia recognizes key South Asian platforms advancing SDG implementation, such as the ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies, ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility, and ASEAN Smart Cities Network. We believe the UN can play a vital role in transforming these platforms into actionable solutions at a local level and ensuring more effective on-the-ground impact. Many developing countries in the region face financial constraints in achieving the SDGs. The UN can play a crucial role in mobilizing international financing, encouraging innovative funding mechanisms, and attracting private sector investments in sustainable projects. Strengthening partnerships with regional and financial institutions will ensure adequate resources for SDG implementation. The UN can support digital transformation by facilitating access to emerging technologies, promoting data-driven policymaking, and advancing smart solutions for SDG acceleration. Strengthening cooperation on digital infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and climate-smart technologies will help address challenges in healthcare, education, and environmental sustainability. The Asia-Pacific region is highly vulnerable to climate change. The UN may intensify its effort to support disaster risk reduction, climate financing, and nature-based solutions. Technical assistance in low-carbon transitions, renewable energy, and sustainable urban planning will be essential for long-term resilience. Malaysia supports strengthening regional energy monitoring through improved data collection and analysis. We believe that an ASEAN-wide SDG reporting system aligned with the analysis methodology used in the UN Secretary General's SDG Progress Report will enhance policy interventions and track progress more effectively. The UN can play a key role by providing technical support to produce updated SDG snapshot reports for both Asia-Pacific and ASEAN with the latest data. In conclusion, Malaysia calls on the UN and regional partners to strengthen cooperation in financing, technology access, and climate action to accelerate SDG progress. We believe UN experts can help the region better navigate geopolitical, climate, and technological challenges for resilient and sustainable future for Asia-Pacific. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries to be followed by distinguished delegate from United Nations Population Fund.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, it is an honor to address this session on the transformative role of the palm oil sector in advancing key sustainable development goals, SDG 5, 8, and 17. For the SDG 5 gender equality is vital for resilient, inclusive societies. While progress has been made, challenges such as gender-based violence and low leadership representation remain. The palm oil sector empowers women by providing formal employment, leadership opportunities, and community initiatives that enhance financial interdependence. We call for stronger policies on gender equality, increased financial support for women-led businesses, and enhance workplace protections. For the SDGs 8, decent work and economic growth, the palm oil industry drives economic growth, contributing 4.5% to Indonesia GDP and 3.7% to Malaysia GDP, while creating millions of jobs. Investment in vocational training, technology adoption, and labor standards ensure fair wages, safe conditions, and sustainable livelihoods. We urge greater collaboration among governments, industry, and civil society to scale up these best practices. Finally, on the SDGs 17, Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries brings together countries across Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Africa to strengthen regional cooperation. The palm oil sector fosters trade, technology transfer, and sustainability efforts. We advocate for digital traceability in supply chains, stronger support for the smallholders, and innovative funding models to accelerate sustainable and deforestation-free palm oil. Through strategic actions in SDGs 5, 8, and 17, we can transform challenges into inclusive, sustainable growth. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I invite the distinguished delegate representing the United Nations Population Fund to be followed by a distinguished delegate representing the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, civil society representative, colleagues, and friends. The Asia-Pacific region is home to over 60% of the world population, making this region a key driver of global progress towards sustainable development goals. The region has made significant progress in health, with life expectancy rising and child mortality rates dropping. Most countries in the region are experiencing demographic shift, with rapidly aging population in big part of the region and youth population in some others. These changes have significant implications for population health and well-being, gender equality, social cohesion, as well as economic development. A key area of reform remains addressing the current fragmentation of the health systems and the need to strengthen primary health care in order to achieve universal health coverage. Strengthening healthcare systems to provide comprehensive sexual reproductive health services is crucial for improving health outcomes in the population as a whole, and especially for adolescent girls and young women. During the SDG 3 roundtable discussion yesterday, the importance of investing in a workforce training and capacity building for frontline health workers, such as midwives, was highlighted. It was highlighted also that the need to expand health benefits package for quality health services provision. These actions will be crucial to improve health services availability, affordability, and quality for all. The Roundtable 5 today made a clear call to strengthen survivor-centered approaches and institutional frameworks to eliminate all forms of violence against women. These structures need to embrace the principles of intersectionality while addressing the root causes of violence against women at every level. The support to women's-led organizations need to be enhanced to continue a strong civic space, but also to facilitate community-driven, safe, and ethical data collection that inform policies and programs, and in doing so, the emerging megatrends and challenges of climate crisis and technology-facilitated gender-based violence need to be at the front and the center and not an afterthought. Stronger protection against discrimination, enhancing system of care, and reducing the gender disparity in wages and caregiving responsibilities can drive meaningful progress. Expanding access to skills, finance, and entrepreneurship opportunities for women can also unlock economic growth and development. The region's rapid aging demands innovative policies that view longevity as an asset and not a liability, emphasizing greater intergenerational solidarity, prioritizing adaptive labor markets for all ages, and introducing inclusive social protection for all ages and are preconditions for achieving an equitable, economic, resilient future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from the UHCHR to be followed by a distinguished delegate representing the APRSM Aging and Elderly Constituency.
Thank you. This is the UN Special Rapporteur on Climate Change and Human Rights, who is supported by but independent from the UN Human Rights Office. Thank you for the opportunity to share a couple of key reflections that we exchanged this week while speaking about SDG 14, climate change and human rights, which I believe are also relevant for the other SDGs under review. While some communities are more visibly dependent on the ocean, all of us depend on this life support system, as the ocean has absorbed more than 90% of the excess heat arising from climate change and provides a sink for a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. The human right to a healthy environment, which includes a healthy ocean, helps to ensure that no one is left behind in ocean governance and broader SDG governance, that all the connections between a healthy ocean and human well-being are considered in decision-making, and the business involved in the blue economy and the just transition act responsibly through clear policies on their human rights responsibilities, due diligence procedures, grievance mechanisms, and remediation. The human right to a healthy environment clarifies also minimum standards to ensure the inclusiveness of ocean and other SDG governance processes, public access to information regarding the environmental and human rights impacts of marine and coastal developments and conservation activities, early, meaningful, and equitable participation, which necessitates representation of all affected parties and culturally appropriate opportunities for those with historical connections and continued reliance for food, livelihoods, and cultural continuity on the ocean. access to justice and effective remedies for violations, and safe civic spaces where environmental human rights defenders and ocean defenders are guaranteed their freedom of expression, association, assembly, and peaceful protest, and are safeguarded from any threats, harassment, intimidation, or violence. The participation of indigenous peoples, small-scale fishers, women, youth, and children, and the respectful integration of their needs, knowledge systems, and cultural heritage is required as a matter of preventing discrimination. All in all, these obligations clarify that public authorities in ocean and SDG governance need to shift away from current technical decision-making processes and tick-box stakeholder engagement, where they formally treat all groups equally despite power imbalances and differentiated responsibilities for environmental impacts, as well as differentiated vulnerabilities to those impacts. States must establish substantive, proportional, and non-retrogressive laws, policies, and institutions, as well as effective monitoring, investigation, and enforcement mechanisms to prevent foreseeable infringement of human rights arising from the degradation of the marine environment, from climate change, and from exclusionary decisions on the blue economy. This will allow for ocean-based climate actions that are based on the ecosystem and human rights-based approach to the benefit of humanity at large. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the APRSM Aging and Elderly Constituency to be followed by distinguished delegate representing UN Environment Program.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the APRSM Older Persons Constituency. This is Armugam Shankar, Executive Director from Empower India CSO. With only 5 years until 2030, achieving 17 SDGs remains elusive. ESCAP's SDG Progress Report 2025 shows just 16 of 117 targets are on track, while 18 are regressing. Despite some post-COVID-19 progress, rising healthcare privatization has increased out-of-pocket expenses, reduced public health investment, worsened indicator 3C1 as skilled professionals migrate to the global north for better pay, creating shortage in the global south. The UHC Global Monitoring Report from the World Health Organization and the World Bank shows that half the world's population still lacks access to health services. Older people who have a high need for health care services often struggle to access them. Older people also face additional barriers to their right to health, including issues of availability, accessibility, acceptability, and quality of health and care services, ageism, discrimination, funding, design and delivery. Universal health coverage, a key focus area in the coming Second World Summit on Social Development this year, cannot be achieved without addressing the needs and rights of older populations, especially in this rapidly aging region. The successive VNRs have not given enough importance to public health spending, weakening infrastructure, and increasing privatization of the health services. VNR presentations remain a friendly discussion with no expected outcome. We have consistently urged for follow-ups with concrete recommendations to ensure accountability. So we call upon governments and health actors at all levels to scale up public investment in UHC and to champion age and disability inclusive, gender responsive health and care systems essential for healthy aging for all. We demand access to quality health services that are publicly funded, not privatized. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate representing the UN Environment Program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, climate change, loss of nature, pollution degrade the blue ecosystems, harm marine life, undermine the livelihoods of coastal communities, negatively impact health and well-being. UNEP continues to prioritize healthy blue ecosystems that safeguard economic assets, enrich biodiversity, enhance planet societal resilience through our Regional Seas Program, the coordinating body on seas of East Asia, and the Northwest Pacific Action Plan. At the regional level, a regional UN group on oceans and blue economy, co-led by UNESCO and UNEP, has been established. UNEP continues to work actively with ESCAP and other agencies at the regional level to scale up climate action through the issue-based coalition on climate ambitions to support the nationally determined contributions 3.0 and to address air pollution. Air pollution continues to remain high and cause a heavy burden on the health of millions. And when we look at air pollution, especially black carbon, other short-lived climate pollutants, it poses a dual threat by harming human health and also speeding up glacial melt, emphasizing the urgency of comprehensive solutions. Looking back over the last year, we have seen an active year of environmental multilateralism. We've seen meaningful progress at the UN Environment Assembly 6. We've also seen the Conference of Parties of the 3 Rio Conventions and the 5th session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment in Busan, Republic of Korea. At UNEA 6, we had 15 resolutions, and one resolution was focusing on promoting regional cooperation on air pollution to improve air quality globally. I'm also pleased to note there's been progress on establishing the Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution Prevention. Meetings will be held in Uruguay in June. And the Science Policy Panel on Chemicals and Waste is akin to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and then the IPBES, which is a panel for nature loss. UNEP looks very much forward to our upcoming 6th Forum of Ministers, Environment Authorities of Asia Pacific. This will be held in Fiji. It will be held for the first time in the Pacific from 26th to 29th August. This forum serves as a platform for member states, other stakeholders, to provide regional inputs to the 7th UN Environment Assembly under the theme, Advancing Sustainable Solutions for a Resilient Planet. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have now reached the end of the time allotted for this meeting. With sincere apologies to those delegations who have not yet been given the floor, I invite you to submit your written statement, which I will give due consideration for inclusion in the chair's summary. Allow me to close this agenda item and thank you all for your contribution and for an excellent meeting. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we will now move on to agenda item number 5, other matters. Before I open the floor for delegations to intervene on other matters, it is my pleasure to report on behalf of the Bureau on the status of credentials of presentations of members of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development in accordance with Rule 12 of the Rules of Procedures of the Commission. The Bureau of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development examined the credentials of representatives of 39 member states submitted in accordance with Rule 11 of the Rules of Procedure of the Commission and found them to be in order. May I take it that it is the wish of the Forum to take note of the report of the Bureau? I see no objection. It is so decided. I am now asking the distinguished delegates of others other matters that need to be discussed? I see that there are no delegations who wish to take the floor. So, allow me to close this agenda item. Many thanks to everyone for your valuable contributions throughout the day. We have very productive meetings. The Secretariat will prepare a report on this meeting for our review and post it on the APFST website by midday tomorrow, Friday, February 28th. The forum will resume tomorrow at 2:30 in ESCAP Hall to consider Agenda Item 6 on the adoption of the report of the forum. Please note that there are a number of events scheduled after this session as well as tomorrow in which you may be interested in attending. Please kindly refer to the list of side events, including their registration details that have been posted on the meeting website. I ask the Secretary of the Forum to make housekeeping announcements.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. There are a series of side events to be held after this session and tomorrow from 9 a.m. onwards. Again, please refer to the ESCAP meeting website for more information on these events. Second, the Secretariat wishes to remind each participant to please take a few minutes to complete the online evaluation survey that is now being shown on the screen by scanning the QR code or typing the link in the web browser. Having your feedback is important to us as it will enable us to improve future forums and events. Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.